Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night to all of you, wherever you happen to be around this big old globe of ours. It's me, Legal Vices. How are y'all doing and where are y'all from? Do our do our really quick check in here. We'll do a few locations and while I scan the back messages to see what I've missed with the pre-chat. Okay, well, obviously I'm here in Korea and it is 10:04 p.m. Hey mods, welcome. We're happy to have mods. Okay, Alan, hey, what's up? Let's see, Flux is here. We got a bunch of peeps. How long ago was this? I will get into all the details, the timeline of everything we're going to be going through today, a little bit of a background, and then we'll get into the vids. These are some okay, we got some Australia here. Hey, always great to have the Australia. Always great to have the Canada, Southern California, Brisbane is in the house. All right, Aberdeen, Maryland. All right. Well, it's good to see us all here, especially if they're from Oklahoma. I wish YouTube would stop telling me that's a good place to put ads in my videos. All right. Hey, my Beavers unit is here. Another mod checking in. That's great. That's always good to have the mods around to keep all you degenerates in line. Well, hey, welcome back to everybody. It's good to see you all here. For those of you that missed the Maritime Monday, which was Maritime Monday for me and Maritime Sunday evening for a lot of you in the States. But all right, before we start, again, I usually like to kick off the main event about the time we get around 100 people here or so. We're up to 60 at this point. We've got, how many likes do we have so far? 40 something. I've messed with the window. So let me back that out so I can have all these numbers at my fingertips. There we go. Okay. Well, before we start, we got 56 likes out of 73 viewers. That's great. But as I was saying, before we start, just a little personal thing I got to get out of the way. Trying to be Mr. Cheerful guy today, but about 6 hours ago, a very, very close and dear friend of mine passed away. So I'm not in the most chipper of moods, but hey, it was a long battle with an extremely rare cancer that was totally terminal, but he had another 2 to 3 years to live, the doctor said, but he got corona a couple of weeks ago, got COVID, which led to pneumonia, which led to a ventilator, which led to his passing earlier today. I wasn't planning on having a stream tomorrow night because I was having a friend come from out of town. But I've canceled that and I'll deal with that at a different time. So, because I have to run to the mortuary tomorrow and do some of that. So I'll be here streaming after I get back. But just to kick that off for my dear friend Kerry, he was a trooper here in Busan. He was a legend. His favorite booze was Fireball. I can't stand Fireball. It is just the devil's juice. I mean, it's even literally got a devil on the front of it. It's like if you just took cinnamon and smeared it around the devil's, I was going to say asshole, but testicles are probably word. Anyway, you get the idea. Some of y'all like your Fireball. I can't stand it, but that was Carrie's favorite, and that's the only reason I have this bottle in my house. That was Carrie's thing when he came. So, going to do me a quick shot here to Carrie. Carrie, you get the official Legal Vices shot glass. Oh, God. Rest in peace, my old dear friend. God, that's bad. All right. Ugh. Yay. All right. I just had to get that out of the way to put me in a little better mind spot than I was. Someone has been knocking my table around. Got to get Zilla in there. All right. Whew. Now with that out of the way, we've got my own here. The weather starting. Oh my Lord in heaven! I forgot to add the most important part. It's my official Johnny Depp Mega Pint Legal Vices Pimp Cup. I got that here. All I have in there at the moment is cola and lime. I forgot to add the wild turkey to it. That's the mood I'm in. We're going straight for the Turk. Wild Turkey 101. It's cooling off enough here that I can actually not die of heat stroke while I do these shows in this room at the far end of my house. And of course, because I am Legal Vices and I am a degenerate, I just stirred that drink with my finger. There we go. All righty. We have 107 people here. We can get into the meat and bones of what we're doing today. Thank y'all for putting up with that for 5 minutes. I just had to pay some public last respects to my dear friend Carrie. All right, we all know the drill. We won't spend a lot of time on it because, like I said, we have a huge amount of ground to cover today, and we got to get cracking on it. So we all know to hit that like button. I'm gratefully indebted to everyone that hits that like button. We've got 102 people here now and 77 likes. So that's about just a little around 75% like ratio. So let's get that up to 100. Everybody just get down there, hit that like button, let YouTube know you like what's going on. And that'll get me in their sights, and they'll start recommending me to people, and that'll grow the channel. We are growing nice and steadily. So if you haven't already done so, please as well go down there and hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get the numbers going, and sign up for the notifications. And again, I only do it once, about two, maybe 3 times a show. The super chats. I try to pay attention to the chat as much as possible, but the sure way to make sure that you get any questions asked that you absolutely want me to address, anything you want to say, any opinion you want to make sure everybody hears about it, and to see your name in lights. Super chat. Everything you do is greatly appreciated. It is not required. It just helps me hone in on your comments, and you can give yourself a pat on the back. So thank you very much for that. With that, we will start out in the super chat. Jillian N kicks us off today. Thank you so much for the super chat. You're first. You're the best. So sorry if you're lost, Jeff. Sending healing and comfort to you and the rest of his friends and family. Fireball is best mixed with whiskey. Fireball is best mixed with the toilet water, as far as I'm concerned. But hey, if you like it, that's your thing. Hey, no slight to you. That's just my own personal opinion. Legal Vice, how's it going? Yeah, as well as you could expect under the circumstances. But yep, that's the first rule of whiskey. The best whiskey is the whiskey you like to drink the way you like to drink it. And of course, I would argue that Fireball's not really whiskey, but if that's your thing, I'll give it to you. So, all right. That's it. Like, subscribe. Hit up for the notifications, super chats, all that's out of the way. So what we're going to do today, we're going to take a trip back to high school. I was a sophomore in high school. No, I had just started my junior year. Yeah, I had just started my junior year when all this went down. Junior in high school, 1985. We've got the AC/DC homage hat on today. Yeah. So what happened in 1985? 1985, for those of you that weren't around, and I know a lot of you are, and not a lot of you were around in 1985. So you remember this. It's the height of conservatism. Ronald Reagan's president. Things are going great. The economy is prospering. It's we're beating the Soviet Union in the arms race. We've got all this going on. But also every generation has their time and something they complain about the younger generation is doing. And 85 was the big one. There was the free love and the hippies in the late 60s, early 70s. It was kind of quiet in the mid 70s. Early 80s. But then in 1985, that's when everybody was blamed for everything. Rock music was evil and horrible, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Dungeons and Dragons was responsible for murders, satanic cults, witchcraft, rapes, fantasy. I mean, just everything. D&D was the evil thing. Dungeons and Dragons, if you played it, you were horrific. It was the secret thing all us cool kids did, or at least we thought we were the cool kids. So those were the two big things that were being demonized, I guess, for lack of a better word, in 1985 was Dungeons and Dragons and rock music. Sam, you graduated in 87, as did I. And yeah, it's just that's the time it was. And oddly, a lot of this was, even though it was a conservative government run by Ronald Reagan, who was one of the most conservative presidents, a lot of this demonization of kids having fun and being themselves was led by the liberals, was led by the Democrats. And as we're going to see tonight, this led to congressional hearings on attempts to censor music. And it's a funny story how all this came to be. And well, like I said, we've got 3 videos we're going to watch. We got about 3 videos we're going to watch. And they're about 30 minutes each. So we got 90 minutes worth of videos. And in a 2-hour program, that doesn't give us a lot of time to talk about much. So I want to dive into this as quickly as possible. So what happened was you had this group that materialized. This group was the Parents Music Resource Committee, I believe it was. It was committee or commission? Council. It was the Parents Music Resource Council. Lisa Ballerini asks, isn't this where the parental advisory warning labels come from? That's what we're going to be talking about today. So it all starts, I'm sure everybody knows Senator Al Gore, who became Vice President Al Gore, who couldn't quite become President Al Gore. Well, his wife, Tipper, she did something that was pretty cool for a mom, I guess you could say. She decided that her daughter needed a record for her birthday. Well, an album. We call it an album. It was probably a cassette tape in '85. But it all started when Tipper Gore bought her daughter a copy of Prince's Purple Rain album for her birthday. And that it may have been 85 or 84, but right around that is when the movie Purple Rain came out, and it was also rated R. So the film and the soundtrack kind of got a lot of flack for their sexual content. The particular song that put the twist in Mrs. Gore's knickers was Darling Nikki, which was a song about masturbation, but not just about masturbation, about the most evil kind of unspoken masturbation. Female masturbation. Not supposed to talk about that. It's unnatural. So yeah, Ms. Gore, Tipper Gore, she was all up in a snit because her 11-year-old daughter was hearing about the fact that sometimes girls masturbate. So yeah, she went on a tear. Tracy Fagan, thank you so much. It all started with the Stepford Wives. Tipper Gore is a Stepford wife, just a robot woman. Dang, it's a long road off a very short pier at this particular time. But so what does she do? She gets this, she freaks out. She hears the lyrics on this filthy, just horrific album that talks about touching yourself. Shh, don't do it. You'll go blind. So she took action because she is Tipper Gore. She has more power to take more action than you or I do. So the Parents Music Resource Council, the PMRC, was formed. Who was on this committee, we may ask? Well, if you guessed the wives of senators, cabinet members, DC businessmen, then you would be correct. And what they wanted, the PMRC, they wanted the radio, or was the RIAA, the Radio Industry Association of America. They wanted the RIAA to label the records, tapes, and CDs for their objectionable content. They actually had, they wanted a rating like V for violent, D for drugs, things like that. They kind of wanted to follow the Motion Picture Association of America and have ratings on all of the albums and all the music. so that they would be aware, so that everybody would be aware of the objectionable content. but they didn't want to force it. They wanted it to be voluntary, or so they said. But as one of the senators said during the committee, they wanted to pass a law to require the people to voluntarily do it. So you go figure out what that means. But so, lest they throw all music under the bus, the PMRC started out by identifying 15 songs. They called them the Filthy 15. I should have prepared a list of the Filthy 15 here. Let me very quickly pull up a list of the Filthy 15, which, I mean, is really silly, actually, at this point in time. Let's see. PMRC Filthy 15. Geez, you just type in PMRC and that's the first thing that comes up. Here we go. Pulling it up. All right. The Filthy 15 songs. These were the main ones that were targeted at this initial thing. Prince, Darling Nikki for sex and masturbation. Sheena Easton, Sugar Walls. Remember, all of you that are around my age, the first time when you heard Sugar Walls and realized it wasn't talking about a gingerbread house? Come spend the night inside my sugar walls. And Sheena Easton was hot. Judas Priest, Eat Me Alive, Sex and Violence. Vanity, Strap On, Robbie Baby. Wonder what that was about. Motley Crue, Bastard is on the list. AC/DC, Let Me Put My Love Into You. Again, self-explanatory for that. That was probably about sex. Twisted Sister, We're Not Gonna Take It, Violence. And that's going to be a main part of the upcoming testimony by Dee Snider. Twisted Sister, We're Not Going to Take It, being about violence, because y'all saw the video. He blew his father out the window with a power cord from the guitar and proceeded to beat up his father Home Alone style throughout the video. Yeah. Madonna, Dress You Up, all about sex, later came to be a major advertising soundtrack for The Gap, I believe it was. Wasp, Animal, Fuck Like a Beast. Clearly that was about sex. And they also flagged that one for language and violence. Def Leppard, High and Dry on a Saturday Night. Drug and alcohol use. Merciful Fate, Into the Coven by about the, I've never heard that song. Black Sabbath, Trashed. Drugs and alcohol abuse. Mary Jane Girls, In My House. They didn't even bother to mention what the Mary Jane part of the Mary Jane Girls stood for, probably. Venom, Possessed. I haven't heard that song either. That was about the occult, obviously. And Cyndi Lauper. Cyndi Lauper made the Filthy 15 list with She Bop. Why did Cyndi Lauper's She Bop make the list? Because, again, it's about girls having sex and girls touching themselves. Tipper had this thing for women touching themselves. So yeah, that's the Filthy 15. Those were the songs that were initially identified as being the main ones to focus on in this dangerous thing that was going on. Righty, Xcomer Triple Z. Thank you so much for the super sticker. I think that looks like a hippopotamus. Thank you so much. All right. So what happens next? They identify these 15 songs. And these are, Tipper Gore called these, quote, the twisted tyranny of explicitness in the public domain. Now, interestingly, as I said, they wanted the RIAA, the Record Industry Association of America, to put these warning labels on. But as we found out later, the RIAA had already agreed to do this. So technically, this entire hearing was absolutely unnecessary. The RIAA had already agreed to put these labels on, I think it was 19 labels. 19 music labels had agreed with the RIAA to voluntarily do this before these hearings were held. So why did they want to have these hearings? For two reasons. One, just to publicly try to get some support for what they'd already agreed to do. And number two, it turns out the RIAA were actually lobbying for something. The RIAA were lobbying for a heavy tax on blank cassettes. So they're arguing that people were recording and they were stealing songs. Basically, they were dubbing their albums and cassettes and 8-track. I guess 8-tracks are kind of dead by that point. CDs, cassettes, and albums onto cassette tapes, and that was cutting into their profits. So the RIAA is lobbying Congress, is lobbying the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. So the Senate Committee for Commerce, they're lobbying Commerce to tax these blank cassettes, and they're also lobbying to put these labels on the music to a committee that coincidentally had who do we have on the list here? We have Senator Al Gore, Senator Ernest Fritz Halling. So Senator Fritz Halling, Senator Al Gore, the committee chairman, John Danforth. All three of those gentlemen were married to women on the PMRC. Ooh, it's incestuous Washington, D.C. So you have this moral majority group holding hands with the Record Industry Association of America to put labels on tapes as well as to tax blank tapes, and they're lobbying to the Senate committee that has the husbands of the people that are on the PMRC. There's governments for you, people. So what all happened? They got these hearings. They got these hearings to come. And the PMRC, they issued a statement. And I want to quickly read this statement with you. The statement here, we're going to have to bring this up, swap out the windows. You have to go away. Yeah, we'll bring you up here. All right, what have I done? There we go. Sorry, I'd moved the screen down too far. Stop sharing that screen. Bring up the tab with where'd we go? The statements from the Parents Music Resource Center. The typing on this is so small that I am just going to read it off then I can't see what we're looking at down here. Thank heavens I have bifocals. If I'm looking up, I'm looking down my bifocals. So statements from the Parents Music Resource Center, 1985. Mrs. Baker. The Parents Music Resource Center was organized in May of this year by mothers of young children who are very concerned about the growing trend in music towards lyrics that are sexually explicit, excessively violent, or glorify the use of drugs and alcohol. I really need to get like a voice modulator here so I can do concerned old lady voices. Our primary purpose is to educate and inform parents about this alarming trend, as well as to ask the industry to exercise self-restraint. It's no secret that today's rock music is a very important part of adolescents and teenagers' lives. It always has been, and we don't question their right to have their own music. We think that is important. They're your friends. They use it to identify and give expression to their feelings, their problems, their joys, sorrows, loves, and values. It wakes them up in the morning, and it is in the background as they get dressed for school. It's played on the bus. It's listened to in the cafeteria during lunch. It's played as they do their homework. They even watch it on MTV now. Wow. Remember when MTV actually played music? That's how old this Senate hearing was. MTV was actually playing music at that point. It's danced to at parties and puts them to sleep at night. Because anything that we are exposed to that much has some influence on us, we believe that the music industry has a special responsibility, as the message of the songs goes, from the suggestive to the blatantly explicit. Dun, dun, dun. While a few outrageous recordings have always existed in the past, the proliferations of songs glorifying rape, sadomasochism, incest, the occult, and suicide by a growing number of bands illustrates this escalating trend that is alarming. Some have suggested that the records in question are only a minute element in this music. However, these records are not few. We have sold millions of copies, like Prince's Darling Nikki. Remember, that's where this all started. About masturbation, sold over 10 million copies. Judas Priest, the one about forced oral sex at gunpoint, has sold over 2 million copies. Quiet Riot's Mental Health has songs about explicit sex, over 5 million copies. Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, which contains violence and brutality to women, over 2 million copies. Some say there's no cause for concern. We believe there is. Teen pregnancies and teenage suicide rates are at an epidemic proportions today. The Noah Decker report states that in the United States of America, we have the highest teen pregnancy rate of any developed country. 96 out of 1,000 teenagers becomes pregnant. I bet it's a lot higher than that now. Rape is up 7% in the latest statistics, and suicide, probably shouldn't be saying these words like this, should I? Well, between 16 and 24 has gone up 300% in the last 3 decades, while adult level has remained the same. There certainly are many causes for these ills in our society, but it is our contention that the pervasive messages aimed at children, which promote and glorify suicide, grapes, sadomasochism, and so on, have to be numbered among the contributing factors. Some rock artists actually seem to encourage teen suicide. And as it was either, yeah, again, I'll get to this after this paragraph. Some rock artists actually seem to encourage teen suicide. Ozzy Osbourne sings Suicide Solution. Blue Oyster Cult sings Don't Fear the Reaper. AC/DC sings Shoot to Thrill. Just last week, in Centerpoint, a small Texas town, a young man took his life while listening to music of AC/DC. He was not the first. It was one of these guys, I think it was one of the people or groups mentioned in here, that basically said it would sort of be self-defeating if we wanted all of our audience to get rid of themselves. Then there would be no one to buy our music. But Mrs. Gore steps up. Tipper, what does Tipper have to say? We're asking the recording industry to voluntarily assist parents who are concerned by placing a warning label on music products inappropriate for younger children due to and mind you, this shit is being said after they've already agreed with the RIAA to do this. This is all for show. The Parents Music Resource Center originally proposed a categorical rating system for explicit material. After many discussions with the record industry, we recognize some of the logistics and economic problems and have adjusted our original suggestions accordingly. We now propose one generic warning label to inform consumers in the marketplace about lyric content. The labels would apply to all music. I wonder if they'd apply to Mozart, or Bach. Some of Bach's fugues. Ooh, spicy. Bolero. Anyway, we have asked the record companies to voluntarily label their own products and assume responsibility for making those judgments. We asked the record industry to appoint a one-time panel to recommend a uniform set of criteria, which would serve as a policy guide for the individual companies. Those individual recording companies would then, in good faith, agree to adhere to this standard and make decisions internally about which records should be labeled according to their industry standard, to industry criteria. The issue here is larger than violent and sexually explicit lyrics. It is one of ideas and ideal freedoms and responsibilities in our society. Clearly, there is a tension here. And in a free society, there always will be. We are simply asking that these corporate and artistic rights be exercised with responsibility, with sensitivity, and some measure of self-restraint, especially since young minds are at stake. We are talking about pre-teenagers and young teenagers having access to this material. Clutching the pearls. That is our point of departure and our concern. So just in case you needed to know, Tipper Gore and her friends, they're on your side. They're just concerned. They're concerned about you. How nice is that? So that's how this all got off the ground with this statement here. Now, what have we got going? What happens next? They have these hearings. So for the got a couple of notes here. The government, when they're going to make their case, the PMRC was going to make their case to the government. Tipper Gore, Susan Baker, the two we just read from. She was also, by the way, Susan Baker was wife of the Treasury Secretary James Baker. They testified on behalf of the PMRC, as did Reverend Jeff Ling, a pastor at a local Virginia church who read salacious lyrics about bondage, incest, and, quote, anal vapors. I tried desperately to find the statement that he read about anal vapors, but I was unable to find it in a short period of time. So we got through the anal vapors testimony, and a child psychiatrist testified that the notorious son of Sam, serial killer David Berkowitz, we all remember him. It's good documentary about him on Netflix right now. The son of Sam, serial killer David Berkowitz, was known to listen to Black Sabbath. Once confronted by the most frightening to parents avatar of 1980s, Ozzy Osbourne. So they showed album covers. They showed Twisted Sister's We're Not Going to Take It music video. And then we get to tonight's, what are we going to call it? Tonight's pièce de résistance. It's we get to the testimony. And we start off, the first person to give testimony was Frank Zappa. The second person to give testimony was John Denver. And the last person was Dee Snider. But we're going to watch them in a slightly different order. We're going to watch Frank Zappa. Then we're going to watch Dee Snider. Then we're going to watch John Denver. And I have a method for that madness. They were totally unprepared for these people. Again, if you heard me talk about them in the run up to this, they just expected the first two people we're going to be watching, Frank Zappa and Dee Snider, to be idiots. They expected them to be dumb. You know, Frank Zappa's the weird musician, but they didn't realize he was a freaking genius. He's an incredibly deep thinker. His music has led to revolutions, I believe. Was it the Yugoslavian or the Czechoslovakian? I think it was the Czechoslovakian revolution that Frank Zappa's music inspired. But yeah, I mean, he's not an idiot. He's a very, very articulate person who was very, very well read, very, very well educated, and they had no clue. They walked right into it, and I don't even really need to give any introduction to his, because as the first witness, he just came in like a bull in a china shop. He came straight at them hard and fast and was brutal for 30 minutes. And let's watch it. I'm gonna this whole thing might, if someone sees, I'm going to be trying to look to see if we get a copyright notice on here. I'm trying to be watching, but if someone sees it and I don't, let me know, because there's a good chance we might get nailed on this one. But I hope not. Let's go to Frank Zappa as he takes on the Senate Commerce Committee. And go.
The next witness will be Mr. Frank Zappa.
While we're waiting for Frank Zappa to take the table, I wish I was drunk. Thank you so much for the super chat. Late to the chat. How are we? Go back and watch the intro. You'll see. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, here we go.
Mr. Mr. Zappa, thank you very much for being with us.
And look, just look at the smugness with which he just looks at Frank Zappa to begin with. They do this with everybody, and they all get the smiles wiped right off their smug little heads.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, my name is Frank Zappa. This is my attorney, Larry Stein, from Los Angeles. Can you hear me?
If you could speak very directly and clearly into the microphone, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, my name is Frank Zappa. This is my attorney, Larry Stein. The statement that I prepared that I sent you 100 copies of is 5 pages long, so I have shortened it down, and I'm going to read a condensed version of it. Certain things have happened. I've been listening to the event in the other room, and I've heard some conflicting reports as to whether or not people in this committee want legislation. I understand that Mr. Hollings does from his comments. Is that correct?
I think you better concentrate on your testimony rather than asking questions of the
reason
committee.
I need to ask
Zappa.
it because I have to change something in my testimony if there is not a clear-cut version of whether or not legislation is what is being discussed here. So,
do the best you can, because I don't think anybody here can characterize Senator Hollings' position.
Senator Hollings said something to the effect of if he could legislate all of this music away, he would.
First thing
I might help out, just a little bit if I might, but I can't do it.
yes.
This is one senator that might be interested in legislation and or regulation to some extent, recognizing the problems with free right of expression and my previously expressed views that I don't believe I should be telling other people what they have to listen to. But I really believe that the suggestion made by the original panel was some kind of an arrangement for voluntarily policing this in the music industry is the correct way to go. So if it'll help you out in your testimony, I might join Senator Hollings and or others in some kind of legislation and or regulation unless the free enterprise system, both the producers and you as the performers see fit to clean up your act.
Okay, thank you.
Did you hear that? Listen how that started out. I might be interested in legislating music away. Because even this voluntary thing that they'd already agreed to do with the RIAA to put these labels on it, that was effectively censorship because Walmart and a bunch of other stores refused to carry any music that had a warning label on it. And there were lots of places around the country that would refuse to allow any concerts from people whose music had these warning labels. So even this voluntary system was censorship. It was a direct assault on First Amendment rights of musicians to express themselves in music and our right to listen to it. And just that, I would consider legislation if you don't clean up your act. We know where he comes from right out of the damn gate.
Then performers see fit to clean up your act.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that's hardly voluntary. First thing I would like to do,
that's hardly
there is
voluntary.
some foreign press involved here, and they might not understand what the issue is about. One of the things the issue is about is the First Amendment to the Constitution, and it's short, and I'd like to read it so they will understand. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's for reference. These are my personal observations and opinions. I speak on behalf of no group or professional organization. The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children.
Well, tell us how you really feel, Frank. Start us out right. Like I said, he just goes straight into it, does not pull his punches, gives a several-minute verbal beatdown, and then fields questions with an equal slicing insight and wit.
The PMRC proposal is an ill-conceived piece of nonsense which fails to deliver any real benefits to children, infringes the civil liberties of people who are not children, and promises to keep the courts busy for years dealing with the interpretational and enforcemental problems inherent in the proposal's design. It is my understanding that, in law, First Amendment issues are decided with a preference for the least restrictive alternative. In this context, the PMRC demands are the equivalent of treating dandruff by decapitation.
Dandruff by decapitation.
No one
I
has
love
forced
that.
Mrs. Baker or Mrs. Gore to bring Prince or Sheena Easton into their homes. Thanks to the Constitution, they are free to buy other forms of music for their children. Apparently, they insist on purchasing the works of contemporary recording artists in order to support a personal illusion of aerobic sophistication. Ladies, please be advised, the $8.98 purchase price does not entitle you to a kiss on the foot from the composer or performer in exchange for a spin on the family Victrola.
God, he is. I don't see, that is where they went wrong from square one. Don't fuck with people that write lyrics for a living. And if you are going to fuck with people that write lyrics for a living, don't do it. Don't do it with one of the best people, with one of the smartest and most brilliant lyricists that have ever walked the face of planet Earth. And if you haven't listened to Frank Zappa music, all you youngsters, just start tonight. Listen to the lyrics. Brilliant all the way around. The musical scoring is brilliant all the way around. He's a trained musician. So yeah. Simply put, in non-Zappa terms, just because you buy an album doesn't mean that you get to dictate what's on it. And yeah, he just says it better than we could.
The $8.98 purchase price does not entitle you to a kiss on the foot from the composer or performer in exchange for a spin on the family Victrola. Taken as a whole, the complete list of PMRC demands reads like an instruction manual for some sinister kind of toilet training program to housebreak all composers and performers because of the lyrics of a few. Ladies, how dare you? The ladies' shame must be shared by the bosses of the major labels who, through the RIAA, chose to bargain away the rights of composers, performers, and retailers in order to pass H.R. 2911, the blank tape tax, a private tax levied by an industry on consumers for the benefit of a select group within that industry. Is this a consumer issue? You bet it is. The major record labels need to have H.R. 2911 whiz through a few committees before anybody smells a rat.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is chaired by Senator Thurman. Is it a coincidence that Mrs. Thurman is affiliated with the PMRC? I can't say she's a member because the PMRC has no members. Their secretary told me on the phone last Friday that the PMRC has no members, only founders. I asked how many other DC wives are non-members of an organization that raises money by mail, has a tax-exempt status, and seems intent on running the Constitution of the United States through the family paper shredder. I asked her if it was a cult. Finally, she said she couldn't give me an answer.
And that's a bad thing right there. If you're the senators and the guy that you're the first witness you brought up there to humiliate already after what are we, about 6 minutes into his testimony, has the gallery laughing. That's not how it starts out. That's when you know you're not doing well right from the beginning.
I asked her if it was a cult. Finally, she said she couldn't give me an answer and that she had to call their lawyer. While the wife of the Secretary of Treasury recites, "Gonna drive my love inside you," and Senator Gore's wife talks about bondage and oral sex at gunpoint on the CBS Evening News, people in high places work on a tax bill that is so ridiculous, the only way to sneak it through is to keep the public's mind on something else. Porn rock.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. They called it porn rock. That was this was also known as the porn rock hearings. So yeah.
Is the basic issue morality? Is it mental health? Is it an issue at all? The PMRC has created a lot of confusion with improper comparisons between song lyrics, videos, record packaging, radio broadcasting, and live performances. These are all different mediums, and the people who work in them have a right to conduct their business without trade restraining legislation whipped up like an instant pudding by the wives of Big Brother. Is it proper that the husband of a PMRC non-member founder person sits on any committee considering business pertaining to the blank tape tax or his wife's lobbying organization?
That guy.
Can any committee thus constituted find facts in a fair and unbiased manner? This committee has three that we know about: Senator Danforth, Senator Packwood, and Senator Gore. For some reason, they seem to feel there is no conflict of interest involved. Children in the vulnerable age bracket have a natural love for music. If, as a parent, you believe they should be exposed to something more uplifting than sugar walls, support music appreciation programs in schools.
Preach, 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 Brother Frank. That is the gist of this. That is the gist of it. If you want them to appreciate other stuff, support it. What is Congress always trying to do? Defund public television, defund music training programs, defund music education, defund the arts, defund these things that will get the culture to your children. So if you want them to experience something other than sugar walls or today, gangster rap, introduce them to other things. That's what I mean. I'm not that I'm tooting my own horn or bragging in any way, but that's what I did with my son. He listened to, hip hop. He listened to heavy metal. He listened to death metal. He listened to country music. He listened to jazz. He listened to blues. He listened to classical music growing up. He was exposed to it all. He appreciates it all. He knows music for what it is. So instead of trying to pass the laws to do this, to regulate and to strip the First Amendment, take your children to concerts. Expose them to other things if you want them to be exposed to other things. If you don't want your daughter to be hearing about girls that touch themselves, don't buy the albums for their birthday. Parental responsibility.
Your child's need for consumer information. Music appreciation costs very little compared to sports expenditures. Your children have a right to know that something besides pop music exists. It is unfortunate that the PMRC would rather dispense governmentally sanitized heavy metal music than something more uplifting. Is this an indication of PMRC's personal taste, or just another manifestation of the low priority this administration has placed on education for the arts in America? The answer, of course, is neither. You can't distract people from thinking about an unfair tax by talking about music appreciation. For that, you need sex, and lots of it. The establishment of a rating system, voluntary or otherwise, opens the door to an endless parade of moral quality control programs based on things certain Christians don't like. What if the next bunch of Washington wives demands a large yellow J on all material written or performed by Jews in order to save helpless children from exposure to concealed Zionist doctrine? Record ratings are frequently compared to film ratings. Apart from the quantitative difference, there is another that is more important. People who act in films are hired to pretend. No matter how the film is rated, it won't hurt them personally. Since many musicians write and perform their own material and stand by it as their art, whether you like it or not, an imposed rating will stigmatize them as individuals. How long before composers and performers are told to wear a festive little PMRC armband with their scarlet letter on it? Bad facts make bad law, and people who write bad laws are, in my opinion, more dangerous than songwriters who celebrate sexuality, freedom of speech, freedom of religious thought, and the right to due process for composers, performers, and retailers are imperiled if the PMRC and the major labels consummate this nasty bargain. Are we expected to give up Article 1 so the big guys can collect an extra $1 on every blank tape and 10 to 25% on tape recorders? What's going on here?
See, boom, he's got it right there. It's a concerted effort by the music industry to tax the music and to determine and decide what can and cannot be listened to.
Get the vote on this tax. I think that this whole matter has gotten completely blown out of proportion. And I agree with Senator Exxon that there is a very dubious reason for having this event. And I also agree with Senator Exxon that you shouldn't be wasting time on stuff like this, because from the beginning, I have sensed that it is somebody's hobby project. Now, I've done a number of interviews on television. People keep saying, can't you take a few steps in their direction? Can't you sympathize? Can't you empathize? I do more than that at this point. I've got an idea for a way to stop all this stuff and a way to give parents what they really want, which is information, accurate information as to what is inside.
And you're about to see something brilliant here. I cut him off before he said what it is for a reason. This, by and large, did not happen until Frank Zappa mentioned it here. Very rarely would you see it, but now it's actually not that uncommon. Frank has a solution.
An idea for a way to stop all this stuff and a way to give parents what they really want, which is information, accurate information as to what is inside the album, without providing a stigma for the musicians who have played on the album, or the people who sing it, or the people who wrote it. And I think that if you listen carefully to this idea, that it might just get by all the constitutional problems and everything else as far as I'm concerned. I have no objection to having all of the lyrics placed on the album routinely all the time. But there is a little problem. Record companies do not own the right automatically to take these lyrics because they're owned by publishing companies. So just as all the rest of the PMRC proposals would cost money, this would cost money too, because the record companies would need, they shouldn't be forced to bear the cost of the extra expenditure to the publisher to print those lyrics.
That is what started this idea. Before this, you didn't see a lot of the album covers with the lyrics printed on the back. This idea took off a little bit while records were still a thing. You saw more and more and more albums with the lyrics to each of the tracks printed on the back of the album covers. And that was because this was a good idea.
If you consider that the public needs to be warned about the contents of the records, what better way than to let them see exactly what the songs say? That way you don't have to put any kind of subjective rating on the record. You don't have to call it R, X, D, A, anything. You can read it for yourself. But in order for it to work properly, the lyrics should be on a uniform kind of a sheet. Maybe even the government could print those sheets. Maybe it should even be paid for by the government if the government is interested in making sure that people have consumer information in this regard. And you also have to realize that if a person buys the record and takes it out of the store, once it's out of the store, you can't return it if you read the lyrics at home and decide that little Johnny is not supposed to have it. I think that that should at least be considered. And the idea of imposing these ratings on live concerts, on the albums, asking record companies to reevaluate or drop or violate contracts that they already have with artists should be thrown out. That's it all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
That's Frank Zappa's statement. As I said, that was powerful. That was brutal. It put them in their place. It kind of knocked them back a bit. As we'll see going through the last half of this, which is the Q&A session, you'll see that they didn't really recover from this and dug themselves into a deeper hole. So as a quick buffer here between the statement and the Q&A session, 226 people here now, 166 likes. Reach down there, hit that like button, please. You should like this. If you have any desire, any interest, any love for music, hit that like button. Let's draw people's attention to this. On to the Q&A.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zappa. You understand that the previous witnesses were not asking for legislation, and I don't know, I can't speak for Senator Hollings, but
the other guy just said he was.
Is that nobody's asking for legislation. The question is just focusing on what a lot of people perceive to be a problem, and you've indicated that you at least understand that there is another point of view.
Yeah.
And see, that prick wasn't even listening. He didn't even hear the other senator that said, I might be interested in legislation. it's just the disdain they have for people. The prick wasn't even listening.
And that there, you've indicated that you at least understand that there is another point of view.
Yeah, I do.
And that there are people who think that, parents should have some knowledge of what goes into their home.
All along, my objection has been with the tactics used by these people in order to achieve the goal. I just think that the tactics have been really bad. And the whole premise of their proposal, they were badly advised in terms of record business law. They were badly advised in terms of practicality, or they would have known that certain things don't work mechanically with what they suggested.
Senator Gore.
Go get him,
very
Gore.
much, Mr. Chairman. I found your statement very interesting. And let me say, although I disagree with some of the statements that you make and have made on other occasions, I have been a fan of your music, believe it or not.
Do you believe it? Do you believe that Al Gore Jr. is a fan of Frank Zappa's music? Uh-huh. Yeah, not for a damn second.
I respect you as a true original and a tremendously talented musician. Your suggestion on printing the lyrics on the album is a very interesting one, because the PMRC at one point said they would propose either a rating or warning, or printing all the lyrics on the album, and the record companies came back and said that they didn't want to do that. But I think an awful lot of people agree with your suggestion that one easy way to solve this problem for parents would be to put the actual words there, so that parents could see them. In fact, the National Association of Broadcasters made exactly the same request of the record company. So I think your suggestion is an intriguing one and might really be a solution for the problem.
Well, you just have to understand that it does cost money, because you can't expect publishers to automatically give up that right, which is a money-earning right for them. Somebody's going to have to reimburse the publishers. The record industry is going to, without trying to mess up the album jacket art and impose that lyrics only be printed on the back, it should be a sheet of paper that is slipped inside the shrink wrap, that when you take it out, you can still have a complete album package. So there's going to be some extra cost for printing it. But as long as people realize that for this kind of consumer safety, you're going to spend some money, and as long as you can find a way to pay for it, I think that would be the best way to let people know.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. And the separate sheet would also solve the problem with the cassettes as well, because you don't have the space for words on the cassette packs. And
that would have to be a little accordion fold then.
Yeah,
which is exactly what they became.
Like that, and or just fold it. But
oh, those were the days when you could smoke a pipe in the Senate chambers during a hearing. Oh, exactly. This was Swan Lake Lady just mentioned that. Exactly. Those were the days when you could just light up and smoke. Anyway, moving right along.
A very large percentage of the albums now sold are sold in cassette form. I've listened to you a number of times on this issue, and I guess the question that I really want to get from you is, or the statement that I want to get from you is on whether or not you feel that the concern is legitimate, because occasionally you feel very strongly about your position. I understand that. Very articulate and forceful. But occasionally you give the impression that you think parents are just silly to be concerned at all.
That's not an accurate impression of.
Okay, well, please clarify it then.
First of all, I think it is the parents' concern. It is not the government's concern.
Yeah, they agree with you on that.
Well, that doesn't come across in the way they have been speaking. The whole drift that I've gotten, based on the media blitz that has attended the PMRC and its rise to infamy, is that they have a special plan, and it has smelled like legislation up until now. There are too many things that look like hidden agendas involved with this, and I'm a parent. I've got 4 children. 2 of them are here. I want them to grow up in a country where they can think what they want to think, be what they want to be, and not what somebody's wife or somebody in government.
That was just a punch right in Gore's face right there. Not somebody's wife, knowing that his wife was the leader of this stupid PMRC. That was just a punch in the face to Al Gore right there.
I want them to grow up in a country where they can think what they want to think, be what they want to be, and not what somebody's wife or somebody in government makes them be. I don't want to have that, and I don't think you do either.
Okay, but now you're back on the you're back on the other issue, and let me just say briefly on that they say repeatedly no legislation, no regulation, no government action. Certainly sounded pretty clear to me. And
you just had a guy 10 minutes, well, I guess 18 minutes, 15 minutes ago. You just had a guy 15 minutes ago saying he might be interested in legislation that would require them to take these actions if they did not clean up their act. You just had a guy say this, you disingenuous prick. God dang, I don't know why I'm getting outraged about this 40 years later. 35 years later. But I am. God, it just pisses me off every time I listen to this. This prick just listened to this guy say, I am interested perhaps in legislation. And then he said, nobody's talking about legislation. You fucking idiot.
No regulation, no government action. Certainly sounded pretty clear to me. And as far as a hidden agenda, you know, I don't see one, hear one, or know of one.
Okay, let me tell you why I've drawn these conclusions. First of all, they may say we are not interested in legislation, but there are others who do, and because of their project, bad things have happened in this country in the industry. I believe there is actually some liability. Look at this. You have a situation where even if you go for the lyric printed thing in the record, because of the tendency among Americans to be copycats. One guy commits a murder, you get a copycat murder. Now you got copycat censors. You've got a very bad situation in San Antonio, Texas right now, where they're trying to pass PMRC type individual ratings and attach them to live concerts, with the mayor down there trying to make a national reputation by putting San Antonio on the map as the first city in the United States to have these regulations, against the suggestion of the city attorney who says, I don't think this is constitutional. But, you know, there's this fervor to get in and do even more, even more. And the other thing, that if the PMRC starts off talking about lyrics, but when they take it over into other realms, when they start talking about the videos, in fact, you misspoke yourself at the beginning in your introduction when you were talking about the music does this, the music does that. There is a distinct difference between those notes and the chords and the bass line and the rhythm that supports the words and the lyrics. I don't know whether you really are talking about controlling the type of music that kids hear. So,
yeah, see? Boom. This is what happens when you fuck with an educated guy. He's saying, you're all talking about the music. None of you are talking about the music. You're talking about the lyrics. The music and the lyrics are different. So he's like, yeah, are you talking about regulating the beat, the rhythm, or are you talking about the lyrics? So you poke the bear and you're going to reap the bear whirlwind or whatever. So yeah, he is infinitely smarter than these douche nozzles.
So just specifically, we're talking about lyrics. It began with lyrics. But even looking at the PMRC fundraising letter in the last paragraph at the bottom of the page, it starts looking like it's branching into other areas when it says, we realize that this material has pervaded other aspects of society. And it's like, what? You're going to fix it all for me?
No, I think what I think they're acknowledging some of the statements by some of their critics who say, well, why single out the music industry? But if I could have just half a minute to more, Mr. Chairman. Before we got back into that stuff, you were saying, yes, you do believe that there is a legitimate concern.
Yeah, but the legitimate concern is a matter of taste on for the individual parent and how much sexual information that parent wants to give their child at what age, at what time, in what quantity, okay? And I think that because there is a tendency in the United States to hide sex, which I think is an unhealthy thing to do, and many parents do not give their children good sexual education in spite of the fact that little books for kids are available, and other parents demand that sexual education be taken out of school, it makes the child vulnerable, because if you don't have something rational to compare it to, when you see or hear about something that is aberrated, you do not perceive it as an aberration. Okay?
Okay, I've run out of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rockefeller. Senator Gordon.
Mr. Zappa, I am astounded at the courtesy and soft voiced nature of the comments of my friend, the senator from Tennessee. I can only say that I found your statement to be boorish, incredibly and insensitively insulting to the people who were here previously.
It's supposed to be, you dick. It's supposed to be insulting, because this whole thing is insulting. And you, Senator, you're just looking like Fire Marshal Bill there, just making a dumbass of yourself. Yeah, it was aimed at you too, you dick. Here he is sitting on his high horse, looking down his nose at Zappa.
And insensitively insulting to the people who were here previously.
But let's see who wins this round.
That you could manage to give the First Amendment, the Constitution of the United States, a bad name if I felt that you had the slightest understanding of it.
What a condescending fuck. This is a man whose entire existence revolves around the First Amendment. If you had even the slightest understanding of what it was about.
Which I do not. You don't have the slightest understanding of the difference between government action and private action. And you have certainly destroyed any case you might otherwise have had with this senator. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is this private action?
Yeah, is this Senate hearing, and by the way, this was the most publicized Senate hearing in history at the time. This was the most publicized Senate government hearing in history at this point. And that was just a slicing question. Is this a private thing? The government doing shit to us? Is that private, you dick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is this private action?
Crickets.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I want to say that I was surprised Senator Gore knew and liked your music. I must confess that I never heard any of your music to my knowledge.
I would be more than happy to recite my lyrics to you.
Watch out where the Huskies go. Don't you eat that yellow snow.
You've probably never heard of the Mothers of Invention.
I have heard of Glenn Miller and Mitch Miller. Did you ever perform with them?
As a matter of fact, I took music lessons in grade school from Mitch Miller's brother.
Zing!
That's the first sign of hope we've had in this. Let's try and get down to a fundamental question here that I'd like to ask you, Mr. Zappa. Do you believe that parents have the right and the obligation to mold the psychological development of their children?
Yeah, I think they have that right, and I also think they have that obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see
Parents have the obligation to educate their children. They have the obligation to be responsible for their children's development. Too many parents don't do that. They want the government to do it, and this is the kind of bullshit that comes from that. As a parent, you must take responsibility for your child in all aspects of their life, their development, sexual, emotional, physical, whatever it is. Don't leave it to the goddamn government.
any extreme difficulty in carrying out those obligations for a parent by material falling into the hands of their children over which they have little or no control?
Fair
Well,
question.
One of the things that has been brought up before is talking about very young children getting access to the material that they've been showing here today. And what I've said to that in the past is a teenager may go into a record store unescorted with $8.98 in his pocket, but very young children do not. If they go into a record store, the $8.98 is in mom's pocket or dad's pocket, and they can always say, Johnny, buy a book. They can say, Johnny, buy instrumental music. There's some nice classical music here for you. Why don't you listen to that? The parent can ask or guide the child in another direction, away from Sheena Easton, Prince, or whoever else you've been complaining about. There's always that possibility.
As I understand it from your testimony, and
Is that Biden back
once
there?
again, I want to emphasize that
That might
I
be a
see
young
nothing
Senator
wrong
Biden.
whatsoever. In fact, I salute the ladies for bringing this to the attention of the public as best they see fit. And I think you could tell from my testimony that I tend to agree with them, but I want to be very careful that we don't overstep our bounds and try and I emphasize once again telling somebody else what they should see. So I'm primarily worried about children. It seems to me from your statement that you have no obligation or no objection whatsoever to printing lyrics, if that would be legally possible, or from a standpoint of having the room to do that on record or tapes. Isn't that what you said?
I think it would be advisable for two reasons. One,
See, that's brilliant. Not only would I recommend, not only do I agree to it, I think you should do it. It's advisable to put the lyrics on there.
Tapes. Isn't that what you said?
I think it would be advisable for two reasons. One, it gives people one of the things that they've been asking for. It gives them that type of consumer protection, because if you can read the English language and you can see the lyrics on the back, you have no excuse for complaint if you take the record out of the store. And also, I think that the record industry has been damaged, has been given a very bad rap by this whole situation, because it's been indicated, or people have attempted to indicate, that there is so much of this kind of material that people object to in the industry, that that's what the industry is. It is not that at all. Some of the albums that have been selected for abuse here are obscure. Some of them are already several years old. And I think that a lot of deep digging was done in order to come up with the song about the anal vapors, or whatever it was that they were talking about before.
So if I understand you, you would be in support of printing the lyrics, but you are adamantly opposed to any kind of a rating system. Is that correct?
I'm opposed to the rating system because, as I said, if you put a rating on the record, it goes directly to the character of the person who made the record. Whereas if you rate a film, a guy who is in the film has been hired as an actor, he's pretending. You rate the film, whatever it is, it doesn't hurt him. But whether you like what's on the record or not, the guy who made it, that's his art. And to stigmatize him is not fair.
Well, likewise, if you're primarily concerned about the artist,
Yeah, it's not him.
is it not true that for many, many years we have had ratings of movies with indications as to the sexual content of movies, and that has been, as near as I can tell, a voluntary action on the part of the actors in the movies and
just wait to see what words Dee Snider gets on the record.
Reasonably well. What is wrong with that?
Well, first of all, it replaced
I'm sorry, I talked
something
over
that
the
was
question.
far more restrictive, which was the Hayes office.
Sorry, let me back
Actors
up.
in the movies and the producers of the movie and the distributors, that seems to have worked reasonably well. What is wrong with that?
Well, first of all, it replaced something that was far more restrictive, which was the Hayes office. And as far as that being voluntary, there are people who wish they did not have to rate their film. They still object to rating their films, but the reason the ratings go on is because if they're not rated, they won't get distributed or showed in theaters. So there is a little bit of pressure involved there.
So that voluntary
But still,
rating
there is
is actually mandatory.
The government does not require that. That's what the point I'm trying to make is.
Yeah.
And while I think these hearings should not have been held if we're not considering legislation or regulations at this time.
See, this guy's smart. He's onto it, and he knows. I mean, that's the thing is the movie ratings are voluntary, but they're mandatory, because if you don't voluntarily do it, you're not going to get distributed. As Frank Zappa said at the beginning of this, how is that voluntary? And then we have him here saying if we're not considering legislation, the Senate shouldn't be fucking listening to this in the first place.
I emphasized earlier that they might follow. I simply want to say to you that I suspect that unless the industry, quote, cleans up their act, and I use that end quote word again, there's likely to be legislation. And it seems to me that it would not be too far removed from reality.
You're welcome, Kitty Cat.
Or too offensive to anyone if you could follow the general guidelines, right, wrong, or indifferent, that are now in place with regard to the movie industry.
Well, I would object to that. I think that, first of all, I believe it was you who asked the question of Mrs. Gore, whether there was any other indication on the album as to the contents. And I would say that a buzzsaw blade between a guy's legs on the album cover is a good indication that it's not for little Johnny.
I don't believe I answered that question, but the point that you've made is a good one, because if that should not go to little mind, I think there should be at least some minimal activity or attempt on the part of the producers and the distributors, and indeed possibly the performers, to see that that does not get to that little mind. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Colleagues.
Mr. Zappa, I apologize for coming back in late, but I'm just hearing the latter part of it. I hear that you say that perhaps we could print the words, and I think that's a good suggestion. But it is unfair to have it rated. Now, it's not considered unfair in the movie industry, and I want you to elaborate. I don't want to...
He's just fucking answered that question like 3 times. Actors are acting.
I mean,
well, I don't know whether it is accurate, because they sometimes have trouble deciding how a film gets to be an X or an R or whatever. And you have 2 problems. One is the quantity of material, 325 films per year versus 25,000 4-minute songs per year. Okay. You also have the problem that an album is a compilation of different types of cuts. If one song on the album is sexually explicit and all the rest of it sounds like Pat Boone, what do you get on the album? How are you going to rate it? You know, there are little technical difficulties here. And also you have the problem of having somebody in the position of deciding what's good, what's bad, what's talking about the devil, what's too violent, and you know, and the rest of that stuff. But
and you're going to hear that in Dee
Dee
Snider's testimony.
When you rate the album, you're rating the individual, because he takes personal responsibility for the music. And in the movies, the actors who are performing in the movie, it doesn't hurt them.
That's the 3rd time he's answered that question.
I think the actual printing of the content itself is perhaps even better than reading. Let everyone else decide for themselves.
I think you should leave it up to the parent, because not all parents want to keep their children totally ignorant.
Boom!
Well, you and I would differ on what's ignorance and educated. I can see that, but
no, I happen to think
I can't complain. It was there, and they see what they're buying, and I think that would be a step in the right direction. But as Senator Exum has pointed out, whereby the primary movers here in this particular regard are not looking for legislation or regulations, that's our function. And to be perfectly candid with you, I would look for regulations, some kind of legislation, if it could be constitutionally accomplished, unless, of course, we have these initiatives from the industry itself. And I think your suggestion is a good one, that they print those words. That would go a long way to satisfying everyone's objections.
All we have to do is find out how it's going to be paid for.
Good enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hawkins.
Yeah. Yes. So you have 4 children?
Yes.
Pardon me?
4 children.
4 children. Have you ever purchased toys for those children?
No, my wife does.
Well, I might tell you that if you were to go in a toy store, which is very educational for fathers, by the way, it's not a maternal responsibility to buy toys for children, that you may look on the box, and the box says this is suitable for 5 to 7 years of age, or 8 to 15, or 15 and above, to give you some guidance for a toy for a child. Do you object to that?
In a way, I do, because that means that somebody in an office someplace is making a decision about how smart my child is.
Yep.
I'd be interested to see what toys your kids ever had.
Why would you be interested?
Just as a point of interest in this.
Well, come on over to the house. I'll show them to you.
Dumbass. Brendan Lesko, I'll buy this woman a toy. Yeah, I bet she can use a toy or two in her life. Titled Biddy. And on that note, let's continue.
Really?
I might do that. Have you ever do you make a profit from sales of rock records?
Yes.
What the fuck do you think? Of course he does.
So you do make a profit from
Yes.
sales of rock records.
Mhm.
Thank you. I think that statement tells the story to this
Tootsie.
committee. Thank you.
Oh, see, that didn't go over well. Listen to, do you make a profit from your records? Yes. Yeah, see, that speaks for itself. And listen to the gallery. These aren't kids that listen to, I mean, these are adults and older people going, come on, that was a shitty thing to say.
Tells the story to this committee. Thank you.
Mr. Zappa, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next witness is John Denver.
We haven't gotten much on this one. There you got it.
All right. That right there is Frank Zappa's testimony. Dude is smart. Dude is articulate. And if you listen, he had these guys rocking on their heels from the beginning. Every answer he gave was quick, to the point, concise, and biting. But you had the senators going, trying to think of a way to respond to what he was saying. And right at the beginning, he said, we don't need the ratings. Publish the damn lyrics. Let the parents read the damn lyrics before they buy the stuff. And then they can't complain. Take responsibility for what your children watch, do, listen to, see, etc. Take responsibility for it be a damn parent. That's all he was saying. How do you disagree with that? Greg Hansen asks, are you doing all three today or splitting them up? We're doing all three. We're going to jump into Dee Snider next. We're going to jump into Dee Snider right now. We're going to go for about another hour, I think. But we got to get it done. So while we're taking this quick little break here to introduce Dee Snider, please hit that like button. We got 245 people watching right now and 218 likes. And I'm sure some of the original likers have already moved on, and we've got new people coming in. So please, you've been watching this. You've watched it for more than 30 seconds. You clearly like what you're listening to. So do me a solid and hit that like button. Please smash it. Smack that bell end to get notifications. Smack that bell end back and forth, and hit the subscribe button so that you can be a member here and you can hopefully get the notifications. And if you are already a member, just double check to make sure you're still a member, because YouTube sucks. They constantly unsubscribe people for no reason whatsoever. So, all righty. And again, thank you so far to everybody that's had the super chats. Again, this is the second and probably the last time, if not the second to last time I'll mention it. If there's something you want to say or the question you want me to address immediately, something you want to get off your mind, your chest, you say to the group, get out there into the universe. Super chat's the way to do it. No, it's not an obligation. It's not a requirement. There's no minimum. It's just whatever you want to do, whyever you want to do it, and I'll read it and respond to it if it's a question. And moving right along to Dee Snider, what we've got, and let's see, John Denver testified next. But I wanted to go to do, hey, Victoria Preston. What's up? I wanted to go to Dee Snider next because we get the two, quote, bad boys first. We went bad boy, good boy, bad boy. And I just wanted to get like the bad boys out of the way first and then wrap up with the good boy, John Denver. Dee Snider. Dee Snider cuts a very different image than Frank Zappa did. Frank Zappa had trimmed his hair by that point. He's in the nice two-piece suit. At least I didn't notice if it was a three-piece suit or not. It was probably a three-piece suit because everybody wore three-piece suits back in the 80s. But he had the nice suit and tie going. He had the hair. He presented himself quite nicely. Dee Snider, he doesn't quite cut the same visual image. Doesn't quite cut that same image. But what they expected, again, with Dee Snider. Oh, thank you so much, Tracy Fagan. And we deeply, deeply appreciate the super chat. Oh, no, Frank Books will be next. And I think Tipper Gore was actually responsible for trying to get some books censored. If not, she probably, oh, my God. Anyway, hate that woman. Dee Snider. I think they legitimately expected him to be a big fucking idiot. He's a hair band guy. He sings dumb lyrics. He's just a big dumb guy. They expected him to be the drugged out, incomprehensible loser that would prove their point, that would prove why they needed these lyrics restrictions, why they needed these warning labels. But this was a perfect chance, and it came back. It came back that this was Dee Snider's chance to show that he was not dumb. He wasn't the metalhead, hairband, headbanger idiot that they clearly thought he was before he got there and as he was walking up to the table. You'll see this. Al Gore was not ready for him. I think if Al Gore could have come across the table in a professional wrestling move and killed Dee Snider, or at least beat the ever-loving shit out of him at one particular point, which we'll get to in the testimony, he would have. In no way were these people ready for Dee Snider to present himself as an incredibly articulate, and as someone said, the classically trained pianist, prodigy, to be and he's incredibly educated. At least at this point, he was a family man, no drugs, no alcohol, responsible parent. He blew these idiots out of the water. They were not expecting him to be so well spoken. They were not expecting him to be the actual type of person he was. Peachy Keen, thank you so much for your super chat. You say this is hilarious stuff. It would be hilarious if it wasn't so damn serious. This was the government literally talking about legislating away the First Amendment rights for these musicians to say what they want to say and for your right to buy what you wanted to buy. They were trying to take the responsibility of parenting away from the parents, and the people were willing to give that up to a certain extent. That sucks. But then it is so ridiculous, it actually ends up being hilarious again. Thank you so much, Peachy Keen, for that comment. Deeply, deeply appreciated. So let's take a look at Dee Snider. We have an appearance by Dargy back there. Strawberry. Yo, Dargy's... The dog has entered the room. That D-Way says, never judge a book by its cover. And that's exactly what Dee Snider talks about in his testimony. That is exactly what they talk about. So let's jump into Dee Snider here. Oh, one more quick. I wanted to read this thing that Dee Snider said about his appearance. He was in Rolling Stone magazine talking about this testimony. He said they really wanted Motley Crue singer Vince Neil. So they really wanted Vince Neil. Vince is not very articulate. He's an actual lifestyler. And back then, lifestyler was like the guy who lived the rock and roll image. He is actually a lifestyler. So he probably would have been half in the bag going in there. They would have smacked him around because he's incapable of fighting at that level. As far as going and having having an intellectual debate on something, he'd be pretty defenseless. So he was saying that they wanted Vince Neil because he's kind of a stoned idiot who lives the rock and roll lifestyle. They weren't prepared for Dee Snider. So we're gonna jump into the snide here. Let me bring this up. Where did we go? I have lost my window. Dun, dun, dun. Boom. Ah, there we go. All right. Oops. That is definitely not what we want to do. All right, we're bringing up Dee Snider right now, and just look at the image he cuts in. He's well over 6 feet, and he kind of lumbers on in there, dressed the way he's dressed. And talking about the way he was dressed, again, Rolling Stone also asked him about why he was dressed that way for the Senate hearings, and he said, "Because I didn't own a suit." And he said, I was kind of proud of looking like a slob in the highest power, in the highest echelons of power in the entire government. So Dee Snider's testimony, boom, is right here. This is exactly what they were expecting Dee Snider to look like. And they were expecting him to sound the way he looks.
Take the Saturday.
And I love how his notes are just folded up in his pocket. Already causing a stir.
Mr. Snider, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me here. I don't know if it's morning or afternoon. I'll say both. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Dee Snider. That's S-N-I-D-E-R. I have been asked to come here to present my views on, quote, the subject of the content of certain sound recordings and suggestions that recording packages be labeled to provide a warning to prospective purchasers of sexually explicit or other potentially offensive content, unquote. Before I get into that, I'd like to tell the committee a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years old.
They were so unprepared for what he says next. This is not what they were expecting to hear from a dude who looked like this and who wore tons of makeup in his videos.
I'm married. I have a 3-year-old son. I was born and raised a Christian, and I still adhere to those principles. Believe it or not, I do not drink, I do not smoke, and I do not do drugs. I do play in and write the songs for a rock and roll band named Twisted Sister that is classified as heavy metal. And I pride myself on writing songs that are consistent with my above-mentioned beliefs.
There's a look of confusion right there. That's a look of confusion. And this is exactly what happens with like Alice Cooper and people like Alice Cooper. Of course, I mean, he was a near terminal alcoholic back in the 70s, but after that, he became a very devout, born again Christian Sunday school teacher. And even from back in the days when he was a heavy borderline terminal alcoholic, he was very, very clear in stating that there is a difference between Alice Cooper and Vincent Fernier, his offstage person. You know, on stage, Alice is Alice. Off stage, there is no Alice. It's just him. Separating what you see on stage, it's vaudeville, it's acting, it's stage, it's theatrics. Who you are on stage does not necessarily mean that's who you are off stage. I mean, Alice Cooper considered amongst his friends Salvador Dali, Groucho Marx, for God's sake, because they understood and appreciated that he was the theater of the mind. He was vaudeville. There's little difference between what Groucho Marx was doing and what Alice Cooper was doing and what Dee Snider was doing and Kiss was doing. But they chose to assume that he was the same person. And it came back. For hell's sakes, Alice Cooper is friends with Colonel Sanders, the KFC guy. And why my dog is barking, I don't know. Doggy, shut the fuck up. All right. Back to Dee Snider and the confused-looking senator.
There are many facets to this complex issue, and time does not permit me to address all of them. However, my feelings are expressed for the most part by the August 8th, 1985 letter to the Parents Music Resource Center, Stanley Gordikoff, President of the Recording Industry Association of America. This letter was a formal response to the PMRC's petition of the RIAA. The only part of this document I do not support is Mr. Gordikov's unnecessary and unfortunate decision to agree to a so-called generic label on some selected records. In my opinion, this should be retracted. Since I seem to be the only person addressing,
and again, mind you, he's only 30 years old when he's giving this statement,
this committee today, who has been a direct target of accusations from the presumably responsible PMRC, I would like to use this occasion to speak on a more personal note and show just how unfair the whole concept of lyrical interpretation and judgment can be, and how many times this can amount to little more than character assassination. I have taken the liberty of distributing to you material and lyrics pertaining to these accusations. There were 3 attacks in particular which I would like to address. Accusation number 1. This attack was contained in an article written by Tipper Gore, which was given the form of a full page in my hometown newspaper on Long Island. In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade.
This is fucking brilliant. This is if memory serves me, this is where Al Gore probably wanted to fly across the table and beat the living shit out of Dee Snider.
Which was given the form of a full page in my hometown newspaper on Long Island. In this article, Ms. Gore claimed that one of my songs, Under the Blade, had lyrics encouraging sadomasochism, bondage, and rape. The lyrics she quoted have absolutely nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore,
and that right there is a problem. We'll get to the it'll continue on into the Tipper Gore comment, I believe. But this is one of the major criticisms I had with this. When we say this committee is going to review all of the lyrics for every album and every song on every album that's ever produced and decide whether it needs this laid. What if they completely misinterpret the fucking lyrics? They think it's about sadomasochism, bondage, and shit like that, when the song is actually about someone being afraid of surgery. Then what happens?
Nothing to do with these topics. On the contrary, the words in question are about surgery and the fear that it instills in people. Furthermore, the reader of this article is led to believe that the 3 lines she quotes go together in the song, when, as you can see from reading the lyrics, the first 2 lines she cites are an edited phrase from the 2nd verse, and the 3rd line is a misquote of a line from the chorus. That the writer could misquote me is curious, since we make it a point to print all our lyrics on the inner sleeve of every album. As the creator of Under the Blade, I can say categorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and rape in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore.
That is my favorite line from this entire hearing. Andrew Maggard, thank you so much for that super chat. Tipper Gore clearly had some sexual frustration. Hell fucking yeah. Exactly. When she's saying like Tipper Gore is hearing things about sadomasochism and bondage and rape, that's only in Tipper Gore's mind. She's the only one in that chamber that was thinking those things, listening to that song. Can you imagine how much Al Gore wanted to climb over the table and slap the shit out of Dee Snider for saying that? But it was absolutely 100% fucking true. Get him, D. They were so unprepared for these guys. Absolutely did not expect these people to be this articulate. When you have to think, these guys, they use words for their living. They make their living by using and crafting words to be biting, to be cynical, to be brutal. Just laid Ms. Tipper Gore out like a fucking corpse.
Accusation in the gorically that the only sadomasochism, bondage, and rape in this song is in the mind of Ms. Gore.
Boom.
Accusation number 2. The PMRC has made public a list of 15 of what they feel are some of the most blatant songs lyrically. On this list is our song, We're Not Gonna Take It, upon which has been bestowed a V rating indicating violent lyrical content. You'll note from the lyrics before you that there is absolutely no violence of any type, either sung about or implied anywhere in the song. Now,
they talks about the video, and like I said, it starts out with him powered. I want to rock. Wait, anyway, it's and the kid beats his dad up through the whole thing, like Home Alone. And this is where he explains where the idea is for this.
Any type, either sung about or implied anywhere in the song.
That's so beautiful.
Now, it strikes me that the PMRC may have confused our video presentation for this song with the meaning of the lyrics. It's no secret that videos often depict storylines completely unrelated to the lyrics of the song they accompany. The video for We're Not Gonna Take It was simply meant to be a cartoon with human actors playing variations on the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote theme. Each stunt was selected from my extensive personal collection of cartoons. You'll note when you watch the entire video that after each catastrophe our villain suffers through, in the next sequence he reappears unharmed by any previous attack, no worse for the wear. By the way, I'm very pleased to note that the United Way of America has been granted a request to use portions of our We're Not Gonna Take It video in a program they are producing on the subject of the changing American family. They asked for it because of its, quote, lighthearted way of talking about communicating with teenagers, unquote. It is gratifying that an organization as respected as the United Way of America appreciates where we're coming from. I've included a copy of the United Way's request as part of my written testimony. Thank you, United Way. Accusation number 3. Last Tuesday, a public forum regarding the lyric controversy was held in New York. Among the panelists was Ms. Gore. Trying to stem the virtual tidal wave of anti-rating sentiment coming from the audience, Ms. Gore made the following statement, quote, I agree this is a small percentage of all music, thank goodness, but it's becoming more mainstream. You look at even the t-shirts the kids are wearing, and you see Twisted Sister and a woman in handcuffs sort of spread-eagled, unquote. This is an outright lie. Not only have we never sold a shirt of this type, we have always taken great pains to steer clear of sexism in our merchandise, records, stage show, and personal lives. Furthermore, we have always promoted the belief that rock and roll should not be sexist, but should cater to males and females equally.
Boom again.
I feel that an accusation of this type is irresponsible, damaging to our reputation, and slanderous. I defy Ms. Gore to produce such a shirt to back up her claim. I'm tired of running into kids on the street who tell me that they can't play our records anymore because of the misinformation their parents are being fed by the PMRC on TV and in the newspapers. These are the only 3 accusations I've come across. All 3 are totally unfounded. Who knows what other false and irresponsible things have been said about me or my band?
Shake that hair, Dee.
There happens to be one area where I'm in complete agreement with the PMRC, as well as the National PTA and probably most of the parents on this committee. That is, it is my job as a parent to monitor what my children see, hear, and read during their preteen years. The full responsibility for this falls on the shoulders of my wife and I, because there is no one else capable of making these judgments for us.
Zappa said the same thing, but I think Dee said it better. That is absolutely it. And they agree. I mean, why does that not resound with every parent on earth?
In their preteen
Shut up,
years.
dog.
The full responsibility for this falls on the shoulders of my wife and I, because there is no one else capable of making these judgments for us.
That is
Parents
beautiful.
can thank the PMRC for reminding them that there is no substitute for parental guidance.
There is no substitute for parental guidance. Don't know what's up with the dog, but there is no substitute for parental guidance. Dee and his wife are the only people capable and qualified of making the decision on behalf of their young children what they should be exposed to. Take some fucking responsibility as parents. Don't let someone else do it. Don't let the government tell you how to raise your children. Don't let the government tell you what you should be listening to, what you should be reading, what you should be watching. Don't let the government tell you what your children should be seeing, hearing, reading, and watching. Don't let the government tell you what your children should be learning about sex and how to learn about it. You are the only people that should be making. And if you don't make these decisions, if you don't take that parental responsibility, the government will take it away from you as they tried to do here. Don't leave it up to the government. As Dana White says about the UFC fights, don't leave it up to the judges. You take care of your business before it gets there. That is your right as a parent. That is your responsibility as a parent. Preach, Brother D.
PMRC's job ends. The beauty of literature, poetry, and music is that they leave room for the audience to put its own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the words. The examples I cited earlier showed clear evidence of Twisted Sister's music being completely misinterpreted and unfairly judged by supposedly well-informed adults. We cannot allow this to continue. There is no authority who has the right or the necessary insight to make these judgments. Not myself, not the federal government, not some recording industry committee, not the PTA, not the RIAA, and certainly not the PMRC.
Yep.
I'd like to thank the committee for this time, and I hope my testimony will aid you in clearing up this issue.
Thank you. Mr.
Questions?
I get a glass with some water, please? Thank you. Yeah, you're a cameraman. You can do it.
Tell the cameraman to give him some water. Yeah, you're a cameraman. You can bring me my water, bitch. Again, that statement was literally out of left field for these guys. They saw Mr. Hairband, Twisted Sister, makeup, dumbass videos. They expected him to be just a stooge, an illiterate, slobbering goon that would prove exactly why they needed to regulate and censor and warn us about music. First thing right out of the gate, I'm a Christian, I'm a father, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, we don't put up with that shit, we don't have misogynist lyrics, we want women to listen to our music, we want it. They were so taken, and God, I just can't imagine what was going through Al Gore's mind when he said, the only fucking pervert in this entire chamber is your wife, dude. And he's only 30 years old. Kudos to D, man. He pulled it off. And he's still got 20 minutes of questioning to go through. And so, again, just a quick little interlude here. We've got 255 concurrent viewers, 263 likes. We've got more likes than viewers currently, but I know some of you still haven't hit that like button. So get on down there and get that butt. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. This is the kind of shit we talk about: historical stuff, current stuff, and we're going to keep doing more of it. We're going to be addressing lots of stuff like this in the future because I frankly love music, I love law, and I love the legal aspects of these kind of, we might be talking about the DCMA of the 90s. We'll be talking about, the AC/DC alleged suicide lawsuit. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff because this is the stuff that I like. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you got something you want to say, super chat me, and let's get on with the question and answer session.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mr. Snider, let's suppose that there is music which, say, glorifies incest, not yours. Let's suppose that there is some music that glorifies incest. Do you think that, parents should know about it? Or do you think that it's just a matter between whoever is selling the record and whoever is buying it?
As I said in my testimony, I think it's very important that parents be aware of that these lyrics exist.
How could they find out about it?
Well, quite simply, as a parent myself and as a rock fan, I know that when I see an album cover with a severed goat's head in the middle of a pentagram between a woman's legs, that it's not the kind of album I want my son to be listening to.
Right.
If I read a title on the back of, say, somebody said Ice Cream Castle, a title called If the Kid Can't Make You Come, whatever it is, I realize that's a sexually explicit song. By just looking at the cover, looking at the lyrics, looking at the, I should say, the titles, that should cover just about all bases. The few albums that do not express the
So first off, he's got the word "come" into the Senate hearing records, and it goes downhill from there.
their intentions on the cover or in the song titles, I think a parent could take it home, listen to it, and I don't think there's too many retail stores that would deny them the ability to return the album for something different.
Do you think that that most parents, or even kids for that matter, know everything that's on an album when they buy when a child buys an album?
I don't know half the things that are on half the albums I own.
Right.
Some of the bands I listen for musical reasons.
And how often is that the case with people? I know I do it. As much as I love music, there are times when I've listened to a piece of music, like, I mean, this has nothing to do with like prurient stuff, sexual stuff, deviant shit or whatever. But I've listened, there's music that I have listened to for literally decades that I had no idea what the song was about because I never really listened to it. And then one day you're listening to the lyrics and you're going, holy crap, I didn't know that's what that was about. Has that ever happened to you guys? And I'll give you my example. And it's a lame, inane answer. If any of you have heard the song Vincent by Don McLean, the lyrics, I was like, this song sucks. This is a stupid song. Don McLean, who sang American Pie, and this was on the same album as Bye Bye Miss American Pie. Took my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. It's on that, that'll be the day that music. It was on that same album, this Vincent song. I'm like, fuck, this Vincent song is stupid. This is a dude singing about another dude named Vincent. They're talking about starry, starry night. Paint your palette blue and gray. Look out on a summer's day. I'm like, come on, what is this crappy, stupid song? And I listened to it and I'm ashamed to admit this, it came out in like 71, it's like when I was 2. So I'll say let's give me the fact I started listening to it when I was like, we'll say 10 years old. So 79, 89, 99, 99. Literally, I've been listening to this song for damn near 50 years, hating this song until I went to a Vincent van Gogh exhibit and this song was playing over the speakers. And I went, wait a fucking minute. This song, Vincent by Don McLean, is about Vincent van Gogh's paintings. And then I was like listening to, it's like the Starry, Starry Night was about Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night photo. And, I think things like that, the shadow on the hills and the daffodils and shit. I'm like, holy crap. I felt like a fucking idiot because I went through my entire life hating this song because it was Don McLean singing about some dude named Vincent that was having these, weird visions and shit about grain and birds and snowy linen and sanity. I mean, I just pulled up the lyrics. I mean, how I didn't know it was about Vincent van Gogh for 40 years of my life is just ridiculous. I mean, now I understand what you tried to say to me, how you suffered for your sanity, how you tried to set them free. They would not listen. They did not know how. Perhaps they'll listen now. You know, starry, starry night, flaming flowers that brightly blaze, swirling clouds. I mean, reflect in Vincent's eyes of China blue. I'm like, fuck me. How often have you done that with music? Where you just listen to it. You just listen to the music and you don't listen to the lyrics. And then suddenly you listen to the lyrics and you realize, oh God, I didn't even know this song was about that, whether it's for good or bad. Anyway, sorry, got off on a tangent. Let's get back to Dee.
Bands, I think.
And when a child buys an album.
I don't know half the things that are on half the albums I own.
Right.
Some of the bands I listen for musical reasons. Other bands I listen to for lyrical reasons. I know that AC/DC, one of my favorite bands, sings a lot of songs glorifying hell and damnation. I'm a Christian. I don't believe in, I don't want to go to hell and I don't want to be damned for all time, but I do like the feel of the songs.
Oh, okay. I hate to interrupt us here. Prototypo says sexual innuendo is heavily in early blues music. Some of it would make a sailor blush even today. That's actually one thing I thought about for one of my monthly Fuck It Fridays. Maybe I'll do it next month for my Fuck It Fridays, where we just talk about shit and I get drunk for money. But no, the original, like the language of blues is filthy. I mean, it's dirty once you decipher the blues code. Their lyrics were horrible. I mean, just graphic. Once you understood what they were talking about, like Robert Johnson's "Come On in My Kitchen," it ain't talking about a kitchen. Come on in my kitchen. It's gonna be raining outdoors. They talk about any song about kitchens and baking and food was all about raunchy sex. She's got good jelly. Yeah, it ain't talking about a jam donut, my friend. But yeah, we might have to do that. We might have to do that for Fuck It Friday. Talk about blues lyrics and just the degeneracy that they talked about in the old blues lyrics. But let's continue with Mr. Dee Snider.
Lyrics have no effect on me. Other bands who have more to say, I listen to their words and I learn from their words.
Do you think that now there is adequate basis for parents to know what's on the records that their kids are buying?
I think if they really are concerned, there is. But quite honestly, I don't think that the majority of parents are in reality as concerned as the PMRC or myself. I don't think they really want to spend the time to listen to what they might consider to be a bunch of noise. They put it on and they can't understand the thing that's being said anyway. So I think most of them don't spend enough time with it.
Senator Hollings?
Yes, Mr. Snyder, I think I'll just take the opportunity to make an observation because you and I would differ as to what's obscene or what's shocking or what's vulgar.
That's the point. What you think is vulgar, obscene, and shocking is different than what I think it is. That's why the government has no fucking business. Oh, can we get this violent? No, we need to wait for 2 minutes from now. We can get this violent, but this aggressive. The government has no business telling us what is improper, what is gross, what is improper, the government has no business doing that. That is up to each person to interpret for themselves and to interpret for the children that they're responsible for. That is exactly the point, Senator.
Let's take the opportunity to make an observation because you and I would differ as to what's obscene or what's shocking or what's vulgar. And persons of goodwill will differ on that.
Andrew Macker says, yes, old white man, tell us about the blues.
We should not be on the defensive. And
blues guitar is what I play. Traditional, like Appalachian blues, like the old Robert Johnson blues, Lead Belly, Mississippi John Hurt. That's the blues I play on guitar. And it's as I had a wonderful black man once tell me, I'm the blackest. He said, you're the blackest man from Utah. And I took that as an amazing compliment. Sorry. Sidetrack, back to the
hearings. We shouldn't create the atmosphere that we're powerless. The absolute nature of your statement that we don't have any authority, I only want to refer everyone to the Pacifica Foundation case, where the Federal Communications Commission was questioned as to its power to regulate public radio, TV broadcasts that was indecent, but not obscene.
You can regulate
What
broadcasts,
was indecent,
not
what
sales.
was obscene, and what was shocking. They had the 7 dirty words. I think everyone remembers that case on the West Coast.
Squeeze My Lemon, another
And
great
the
Robert Johnson
Supreme
song.
Court of the United States found out positively the FCC had the authority, had the responsibility, and I'm quoting from the language of the Supreme Court, patently offensive, indecent material presented over the airwaves confronts the citizen not only in public, but also in the privacy of the home, where the individual's right to be left alone plainly outweighs the First Amendment rights of an.
Doesn't he just sound like Foghorn Leghorn from the old Bugs Bunny, like Roadrunner shows on Saturday? I'll say I'm feeling offended by these filthy lyrics getting into my head. This guy's such a dick. He's now talking about regulating broadcast. You have every right as a radio station to decide what to broadcast or not. And the FCC has the right to control what goes out over the public airways. But this is an argument about what you have the right to sell in a store.
An intruder. So this isn't just a forum to rally.
Gonna see your ladybugs
and hope something happens. This is a forum with a definite responsibility with respect to Congress and enunciating the duties of the Federal Communications Commission, which have been constitutionally followed. So I understand your opinion, and that's why we invited you up here to hear your words and not mine. But I think that the general nature of all this testimony of nothing censorship, First Amendment absolutism does not pertain with respect to the broadcast media, and that's, of course, the main media, I guess you would agree, to actually sell the record, wouldn't it not be?
Yes, except I'd like to clarify something. I said no authority has the right or necessary insight. I didn't say you weren't able to. I said you don't have the right, or I don't have the right, or the RIAA. Also, we're talking about the airwaves as opposed to.
God, that is some fucking insight right there from Dee. That is some fucking insight right there. He's saying the government doesn't have the right to do this, but they have the ability to do it. They have the ability to make laws to outlaw this, but they don't have the right to do it. That is a very, very astute distinction. And kudos to him for not letting that slip by.
To a person going with their money to purchase an album, to play in their room, their home, on their own time. The airwaves is
we'll talk
different.
about Willie Dixon in a minute.
That the FCC and even MTV have done a fair job in keeping profanity, obscenity, and things like that off the public airwaves. But as far as when you listen to your own home, that's something totally different, I feel.
Yeah, I think that record ought to be elaborated to show just that. Previously, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before this committee, we had the TV networks. And pursuant to that particular hearing, they again came back, I remember specifically CBS, and they demonstrated how they had this film, and then they got together with their producer and removed certain scenes of violence and certain 4-letter words and did not offend the producer's sense of art and the production itself. So we've made some progress. But bottom line, with respect to these particular records, the Supreme Court has found that there is that right and that responsibility. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Gore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, are you going to tell me you're a big fan of my music as well?
No, I'm not.
Okay. That I forgot to preface that. I was going to mention that before. I forgot to preface that. Because as I mentioned, like John Denver was the second witness, and Al Gore told Frank Zappa, "Oh, I'm a big fan of your music." He told John Denver, "Oh, I'm a big fan of your music." And Dee Snider cut Al Gore right off at the fucking knees from the beginning by asking that question. So you've told everyone else you're a fan of their music. Are you going to say you're a fan of my music too? Tilly T, Thank you so much for the 10 pounds, the super chat. Coffee for dear Sunshinery. What a diamond she is. One of these days, I'm going to have to put together a mod stream where you get to meet my mods. That'd be fun. Thank you so much for that. We'll work on some way to get something to her. She's awesome. But yeah, he cut old Al Gore off at the knees by calling him out for his bullshittery platitudes. Just a quick few comments here. Hey, Legal Vices, do you play the blues on your streams, videos? We talk about pop. We haven't talked about blues a lot, but about 2 meters to the left of me, I've got 5 guitars. They're my guitars. We talk, but we'll have to do that for the next fucking Friday. We'll have to talk blues. That's good for me. Willie Dixon says, wondering about the world. Willie Dixon, one of the greatest songwriters. Also, talk about a massive human being. Willie Dixon was huge. I mean, I'm talking physically huge. Willie Dixon was a big boy. And if you watch, he played like the contrabass, like the standing bass, which has these massively thick gauge strings. And he was so fucking big and powerful and playing this contrabass that he would just bend these strings like they were nylon ukulele strings or something. Dude was a massive player, beautiful singer, great guitarist, amazing bass player. So yeah, love me some Willie Dixon. Willie Dixon is just a massive person. I'm built for comfort, ain't built for speed. There's some good lyrics. I'm built for comfort, ain't built for speed. Got everything you good girls need. Yeah, that's a good tune there. All right, back to Dee Snider putting these people in their places.
I'm not a fan of your music. I'm aware that Frank Zappa and John Denver cover quite a spectrum, and I do enjoy them both. I am not, however, a fan of Twisted Sister, and I will readily say that. Mr. Snider, what is the name of your fan club?
The fan club is called the SMF Friends of Twisted Sister.
Now, remember, he just got cum entered into the Senate hearing records. Now he gets to go for broke and the big mother of them all.
The fan club is called the SMF Friends of Twisted Sister.
And what does SMF stand for when it's spelled out?
It stands for the Sick Motherfucking Friends of Twisted Sister.
Is this also a Christian group?
I don't believe that profanity has anything to do with Christianity.
Preach.
Thank you.
So he got cum and motherfucking into the Senate record. 2 points Snider, 0 points Al Gore.
That it's just an interesting choice because I was getting the impression from your presentation that you were a very wholesome kind of performer, and that is an interesting title for your fan club. In Surge, you say your song Under the Blade is about surgery. Have you ever had surgery with your hands tied and your legs strapped?
The song was written about my guitar player, Eddie Ojeda. He was having polyps removed from his throat, and he was very fearful of this operation. And I said, Eddie, while you're in the hospital, I'm going to write a song for you. I said it was about the fear of operations. I think people imagine being helpless on a table, a bright light in their face, the blade coming down on them, and having totally afraid that they may wake up, who knows, dead, handicapped. There's a certain fear of hospitals.
And Al Gore, you're an idiot, and you obviously demonstrate that you have never undergone surgery. That is literally what they do when they strap you in for surgery. They strap your legs and they strap your arms so you can't flail about like a dickhead. That's exactly what they do. They strap your arms and legs to the table before surgery.
That's in my imagination, what I see the hospitals like.
Is there a reference to the hospital in the song?
No, there isn't, but there isn't a reference to a woman, sadomasochism, or bondage, yes, I'm sorry.
There's just a reference to to someone whose hands are tied down and whose legs are strapped down, and he's going under the blade to be cut?
Yes, there is.
All right.
Duh, surgery,
So
you
it's
dick.
not really a wild leap of the imagination to jump to the conclusion that that's about something other than surgery or hospitals, neither of which are mentioned in the song.
No, it's not a wild jump, and I think what I said in one part was that songs allow a person to put their own imagination, experiences, and dreams into the lyrics. People can interpret it many ways. Ms. Gore was looking for sadomasochism and bondage, and she found it. Someone looking for surgical references would have found it as well.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. That's like the I want to fucking kill you look. That's the second time you've said my wife's a perv.
Why do you think there is so much sadomasochism and bondage in some of these new songs?
I cannot speak for the other artists. I can really am only here to defend myself, and hopefully by speaking for myself as one person, songwriter in a band that I feel has been unjustly dumped on, that will just warn us of the dangers of what we're trying to do here. I really can't speak for the other bands.
Now, you made reference to a comment about T-shirts. I would simply note for the record that the word T-shirts was in plural, and one of them referred to a twisted sister, and the other referred to a woman in handcuffs, and was not intended, as I understand it, to say that you appear with a woman in handcuffs. In fact, there are a lot of different T-shirts and advertisements. In fact, I've noticed from some of the fan magazines of particularly heavy metal that little sadomasochistic outfits are advertised with the fingerless gloves and spikes and studs on.
Al Gore, you are so unhip. It's a wonder your ass doesn't fall off, you fuckstick. Spiked gloves are sadomasochistic. The entire fucking 1980s was spiked gloves, bandanas around the thigh, torn jeans, Levi jackets. For fuck's sakes, Al Gore. Seriously? Spiked gloves are sadomasochistic? In what sadomasochistic sex act do you, I guess, punch someone with spiked gloves? It doesn't happen. Gee, fucking idiot. What an absolute fuckwit. So Knuckles from Sonic the Hedgehog is sadomasochistic. Exactly. And let's rock it. Let's rock it on for Sonic here. Okay, we had to pay homage to the Sonic the Hedgehog Dr. Robotnik theme song. Yeah, seriously, I mean, spiked gloves are sadomasochistic references. Gee, bus. Good God, Al Gore is a fucking square. Quit your bitching. Thank you so much for the super chat. And I love that name so much. I'm going to say quit your bitching again. Thank you for covering this. It's obvious these arrogant, ignorant fools believe that these musicians were not the intellectual individuals they are. Exactly. And again, these are people who craft words for a living. Going to run circles around these broomstick up the ass Al Gore and Tipper Gore people. Damn. God dang it. That is just Rollerball. Rollerball was a fucking awesome show. Exactly. That was back in the days when roller derbies were the shit. Was that late 70s or early 80s? But yeah, Rollerball was a great film. They had the spiked gloves and yeah. But they just show their ignorance with this. spiked gloves being sadomasochistic shit. Al, you should be ashamed. And the interesting thing is when Bill Clinton was elected president and Al Gore was elected vice president, Bill Clinton ran on the platform of being the rock and roll president, playing his saxophone, being Elvis Presley. Al Gore had to walk back all of this bullshit and say how rock was cool and shit. Fuck off politicians, and especially fuck off Al Gore.
Particularly heavy metal, that little sadomasochistic outfits are advertised with the fingerless gloves and spikes and studs on them.
Dick.
And that these little S&M outfits are marketed to teens and preteens. Is that correct?
Well, they are marketed. Who buys them, I'm not sure. I'd just like to say, in reference to the comment about T-shirts, I have with me a taped cassette of the exact...
No, I'm reading from your transcript of it in your statement.
I have to check the transcript, but again, I'll say when it was said, there was no question she was referring to a Twisted Sister T-shirt. There was no question if I played the tape for anybody.
In your own transcript, it's plural T-shirts, and 2 examples are cited, but I don't want to belabor that point. Now, you said that you can look at the titles of albums and look at the covers and tell what kind of material is inside. Does the title Purple Rain give you an indication that the material is about masturbation?
It's not.
The album title, Purple Rain,
Yeah.
not the song title.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. I didn't say in all cases. I believe I covered that, those occasional albums that are a bit misleading. That, like I said, I don't think a store would refuse a parent who came in and said, I don't like what's on this record. I would like my money back.
So the choice the parent has then is to sit down and listen to every song on the album, right?
Or read the lyrics if they're on the record.
You should do that.
I think there's pretty general agreement.
No,
that
Darling
the
Nikki
lyrics
is
are
about
printed.
masturbation.
That's one
Purple
possible
Rain
solution
isn't.
for this. Let's suppose the lyrics aren't printed. Then what choice does a parent have? To sit down and listen to every song on the album?
Exactly. I used to do that with my son until he was in high school. If I wanted to watch a movie with him, I would watch the movie first. If I wanted to introduce him to music, I would listen to the song first. Why? Because that's what a fucking responsible parent does, you dick. Is it such a hideous, horrendous obligation or burden upon you as a parent to sit down and listen to a 3.5-minute song or a 45-minute album to see what lyrics are on there? You should be willing and eager to do that as a parent. And the fact that you don't, Al Gore, means you're a fuckstick. I think Tipper Gore needs to spend some time in the bad girl room. Tracy Fagan, thank you so much for that super chat. Exactly. Tipper Gore wants to be in the bad room. It's usually these women that are so uptight about sexy things and touching yourself. They're the ones that do it the most and feel the dirtiest about doing it. Yeah, I completely agree. Tipper Gore needs some time in the bad girl room.
Well, if they're really concerned about it, I think that they have to.
Exactly.
Do you think that's reasonable to expect parents to do that?
Being a parent isn't a reasonable thing. It's a very hard thing. I'm a parent and I know.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm a new parent. I only have one child maybe, but I'm learning that there's a lot to being a parent that you didn't expect. It's not just, oh, isn't baby cute? There's a lot of labor, a lot of time, and a lot of effort that goes into it. It's not totally pleasurable.
Yeah, and you'll find when they get a little bit older that when they're exposed to the kinds of themes that we were presented with earlier, that if you love your child, you're going to be concerned about that. And if you want to protect that child from unnecessary exposure to inappropriate material,
he was 30 years old.
You sometimes need a little help, the kind of guidance that is presented in the movie industry. And it is
you never need help from the government telling you how to raise your children. You never need help from the government telling you what you should be seeing, what you should be reading, what you should be hearing, what you should be watching, what you should be digesting. You never need that help from the government.
Totally unreasonable, in my view, to expect parents to come and sit down and listen to every single song in the albums that their children buy in order to fulfill their responsibilities.
It's 45 minutes of your fucking life, Senator. Is your children's well-being, education, and upbringing, is that worth 45 minutes of your ever-loving fucking precious life? Yes, it is. I did it with my child until he was probably 15 years old. You could do it with yours. Every parent should, and if they don't, they should not be a parent.
Parents. Now, the only thing that I felt at all comfortable about in your statement was when you said that you shared some of the concerns of the PMRC. I would simply hope that, or end by expressing the hope, because my time has expired.
Because you're a dick.
That artists and record companies will find a way to manifest that concern in some self-restraint and show of responsibility to give parents a break. You're right, it's tough being a parent. It's even tougher being a kid. If both are going to be able to deal with the kind of material that's coming out in popular music, it seems to me the industry has a responsibility to give them a little help. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Rockefeller.
Mr. Snider, how would you, do you feel that you have a responsibility as an artist in terms of those words that you write, a responsibility for those who would hear those words?
I feel a tremendous responsibility, and as I said, I don't put anything down on a record that I can't stand behind in my beliefs 100%. I don't sing about drugs, sex, alcohol, because I don't advocate sexism, the use of drugs, and drinking. So I don't write about those things. I only write about things I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way you define what your responsibility is. That is not to write about things that you don't believe in.
Yes.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, that's how I define my responsibility.
Be authentic.
To write about things that you can stand behind. I feel myself to be a moral person, and I think that I have a lot of positive things to tell people about. And everything, like I said, on my records, I will stand there and say, yes, I wrote those words, and this is what it meant, and this is what I was trying to say, yes.
Do you think that parents, not only those who are in PMRC, but other parents who are concerned here and across the country about the development of new trends in music and the lyrics that go along with that music, are naive or somehow missing the point? Do you think that they're unduly worried about some of these developments and writings about sadomasochism, suicide, rape, other things? I mean, do you think that's really not that serious a problem for this country and our young people?
That's like sort of a multiple question. I don't think they're naive, and I don't think that at times they're unduly worried, but I do think sometimes they take it overly serious. I mean, there are monster movies on all the time. They've been going on for ages, and people watch a monster movie and they get scared and they walk away, and it was just a movie. Rock and roll, and many times, is the same thing, trying to get an effect either of laughter, of sadness. A lot of the heavy metal bands are trying to scare people and just make them just like a horror movie. Vincent Price isn't getting have problems because he's done all these monster pictures. He's just an actor. I'm not going to say I'm just an actor, but I am entertaining people, and a lot of these bands are entertaining people. And when they were reading some of these lyrics before, I couldn't help but laugh. I mean, I hadn't heard some of them, but some of the lyrics were ridiculously ridiculous. I mean, you know, and
that's, I love that statement. Some of the lyrics are ridiculously ridiculous. That's, again, I just use Alice Cooper as the example because he's the grandfather of it all. He's the godfather of it all. He's the daddy of Twisted Sister, Marilyn Manson, Kiss, and these other people, as he often refers them to as his disobedient children. He was so vaudeville. His lyrics were so over the top that they're hilarious. Like I said, people were laughing about me on my Fuck It Friday drunk stream last week because I was talking about Cold Ethel being some of the greatest lyrics ever, because it's Alice Cooper singing about having sex with a corpse in a freezer, and it had the lyrics, Cold Ethel, I'm stuck on you. That That is so over the top. It's hilarious. And Dead Babies. It's about a song that some kid climbed up on a cabinet and OD'd on aspirin because his mother wasn't paying attention. Dead babies can't take care of themselves. Dead babies can't take things off the shelf. His ballad, Marianne, Marianne, you're my stars and sand. Marianne, I thought you were my man. I mean, just shit like that is so funny because it's so over the top. And they have no sense of humor. They take everything literally. They don't look at it from a humorous concept and a humorous point of view. They don't think these people are intelligent and capable of wit and wisdom.
Even a kid reading that, I think would go, oh my God, what's going on? You know, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous, the only word I can think of. Some of the lyrics.
The vehemence with which you attacked Senator Gore's wife, I detected sort of a defensiveness somehow on your part.
It wasn't defensive. It was totally attack.
Unsureness of where you stand in this. Why did you feel it necessary to attribute some of the qualities to her that you did? Why was that important to your testimony?
First of all, I wasn't attacking Senator Gore's wife. I was attacking a member of the PMRC. Okay, it was two.
Senator Gore's wife by name.
Oh, her name is Tipper Gore, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't say the senator's wife. I said Tipper Gore. Okay. Secondly, defensive. I've been working very hard. I believe in the music I play. I believe we have a very bad reputation. I've been doing a lot on my part to try and say, hey, this isn't a bad thing. This is fun. This is fantasy. Kids are coming out. They're screaming. They're yelling. They're letting out their emotions, and they're going home and they're feeling better because they let out a lot of their frustrations. As I said, I pride myself on writing lyrics that are not offensive and that are saying something positive. Most of my songs are about personal freedom. And when somebody tells me, after all I've done to fight against sexism, that I've got a shirt with a spread eagle woman, or it says,
fight what?
All I've done to fight sexism. We steer clear. The whole Twisted Sister thing is a very ambiguous. Guys wearing makeup. We don't act like women. We act like men. We don't cater to the males or females in the audience. It's just one audience. So when someone says there's a song about sadomasochism and bondage, or someone says we're not going to take it, is violent lyrical content, which is what it's been rated for. Yes, I'm defensive. Yes, that gets me angry. I'm trying to get adults to see that heavy metal is not totally a bad thing.
How many months in the course of a year do you spend on the road away from home?
In the course of a year, it would be tough to say. Over a 2-year period, because I would spend about 11 months on the road and 13 months at home recording an album, things like that, doing videos.
11 months on the road in a 2-year period?
Yeah, because you do a tour and then you go in and record albums. I've been off the road now for 10 months.
You take your child with you?
He comes sometimes. Some of the shows.
Your child, 9 years from now, when your child is 12 and in school, will you take your child with you?
Absolutely.
When your child's in school?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Thank you for clarifying. No, I would not take him out of school.
And how will it be possible for you to, as a responsible parent, to spend the time that you suggest going through and listening to these records and finding out what it is that you want your son to listen to and what you don't want him to listen to?
To be perfectly honest, 9 years from now, I'm going to be well retired. And I'll be spending more time with my son than any other parent probably ever.
Meanwhile, in 2020, in 95, 05, 15, some 34 years later, he's still.
That's one of the beautiful things about rock and roll, is that I can retire hopefully at a very early age. But even now, I'm very lucky that I have a wife who I've been going with for 10 years now. We've been married for 4, who is this incredible mother. And she, when I'm gone, fills the role, has a very difficult job too, of mother and father.
Does she go through these, do you expect later on then that she'll be going through these records?
Yes.
I think both of us will be doing that.
Why is it so hard?
You expect me to believe that?
To wrap your minds around the fact that a parent would sit down with their child or before their child gets it for 45 minutes, literally less than 1/24th of one day of your life. To sit down, why is that such an absurd thing to imagine, that someone would sit down for 45 minutes and listen to a record and then maybe an additional 45 minutes to sit down and listen to it with your child and talk to them about it?
You can. I'm terminally teenage. I'll be listening to my son's records. And
What about parents where both parents have to work, which is an increasing phenomenon in this country now?
But yes, what if?
because
What
they
if?
have to
What if?
survive.
Go fuck yourself, Senator.
And the whole notion of parents sitting down and listening to record after record, tape after tape, doesn't that really strike you? And that's what you suggest. Doesn't that strike you just a little bit naive and unrealistic?
No, you
no,
fucking
I don't,
idiot.
because I know the reality of the record buying market. As a record buyer, with my allowance, I was able to, if I was lucky, afford maybe one album a week at the most. Usually it was one a month.
Yeah.
Albums cost anywhere from $6 to $10, and that's a lot of money to a teenager, to a pre-teenage. It's a ridiculous sum. To a teenage kid, you know, that's a considerable amount of money. So to listen to one record a week, I don't consider that a hardship.
Senator
Can I ask
Pressler,
just one final question, Mr. Chairman?
bearing in mind that it's 12:30 and we
Yeah.
have a lot of witnesses left, yes.
Well, then I won't ask the question. I'll bear that in mind and won't ask the question.
Thank you. Senator Pressler?
All right, that's the end of that testimony there. Wow. All right, I was hoping to be done with the whole stream by this point, but I talked too much. We've got one last deal, John Denver. And just a couple quick comments before we get into John Denver. Again, please, this is the last time you'll hear this from me for the rest of the day. Hit that like button, except for at the very end when I wrap up. Hit that like button. We've got 321 people here now, 318 likes. And according to this thing, you're only watching for about 26 minutes on the average each. So all of you that haven't hit that like button yet, I would deeply, deeply appreciate it if you hit that like button. Let YouTube know that you like this kind of content, that you're going to come back for more. That'll lead them to recommend me to others. If you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome if some of you this was your first time listening to me and you enjoyed this and you want to come back for more. We're going to be doing this. We're really, really going to be doing a lot of music law related things. We talk about a lot of the mainstream legal issues. We talk a lot about the historical legal issues. Again, I know I've been talking about this for about a month and a half now. We're going to be getting to the O.J. Simpson trial at some point. I like the retro stuff. We can't always do the sensational trials live, the Amber Heard things, but we try to do as much of that as we can, but we've got to fill it up with other things, and I do that a lot. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. That would make me a happy camper. I would be grateful to you, and it would let YouTube know what's up. And again, when you guys leave, come back later and just make a stupid comment. Whatever you put there, whether it's an intercourse YouTube or hi or just your location, it lets YouTube know you're engaging with me. So that's it. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Make sure you feel like you're subscribed. And by the way, just let my mods know you appreciate what they're doing. They're good peeps. They work hard. And it's a relatively thankless job. I thank them every day. Oh, it looks like we've got a lot of bots in here. We have the nude HD bots. I hope you guys took care of that real quick. Keep on that, mods. All right. Matthew Giannotti says, Jeff, when the fuck are you going to set up joining for members? I want to get monthly memberships going, but I really, 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 really need to be able to offer something. And I think the basic thing I can offer is custom emoticons or emojis to use with your thing. And I need someone that can design and draw me some emojis. If you have any skills whatsoever in creating custom emojis, please email me at thelegalvices@gmail.com. I have some good ideas I want to use for emojis. I really want to get that off the ground, but right at this point, I really don't have anything special to offer people for subscriptions. So yeah, we need to do that. If I can't get someone soon, I'm going to have to farm the work out to someone else and see what happens. So yeah, all right. Tilly T said a long time ago, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah, we all know that's about LSD. Lucy, Sky, Diamonds. Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Yeah, and that's it. That is an ironic thing. Originally, when Tipper Gore was talking about how music is important, she was talking about how her generation was listening to the Beatles' Twist and Shout. The Beatles' Twist and Shout was completely about sex, if you read the lyrics. She thought it was doing, obviously thought it was talking about dancing and shit like that. Twist and Shout was totally about sex. Just read the lyrics to the Beatles' Twist and Shout. Sex. And that was like the original boomer moment. The okay boomer. She had no clue what she was listening to, and she was using it as an example of exactly the shit she was talking about. I mean, the whole ending, wow. I mean, God, Tipper, you're a fucking idiot. I've never liked her. I've hated her since before these hearings. You're interested in what prompted this subject matter. One, we talked for some reason at the end of our long streams, we end up talking about music a lot. And we've been talking about Senate hearings with the January 6th stuff going on. And I thought, well, this would be like a perfect opportunity to mix legal issues, First Amendment issues, solid, fundamental core First Amendment issues with Senate hearings in something that music means something to everybody. So these hearings mean something to all of my viewers. And so that's what prompted this, was just like, we're talking about Senate hearings. We're talking about legal issues. We're talking about First Amendment issues with the Amber Heard, Johnny Depp thing. It just sort of seemed like the ultimate way for me to coalesce all of these things we talk about into a single subject. Now we're going to move on to the final witness, which was actually the second witness. He had to go on second because he had a deadline. It was John Denver. He literally had to leave early to go talk to NASA about possibly being the first musician in space. These people invited John Denver to come because John Denver, if you don't know John Denver, again, look up John Denver's music, Rocky Mountain High, Shenandoah, Grandma's Featherbed, country music, folk music, pure innocent stuff. He sings about the great outdoors, growing up in the Rocky Mountains where I grew up. And interesting fact, my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Mathis, was John Denver's cousin. So we heard a lot about John Denver from her. So John Denver was the cousin of my fourth grade teacher. So he's the all-American boy. They brought him on here to say, yes, we need to censor this shit. Of course, he probably never would have said the word shit in his life. They brought John Denver on to say, oh yeah, we need to rein in these lyrics. We need to rein in this shit. We need to control what we need to put restrictions on all these evil music that these people are listening to. That is fully what they expected John Denver to say. They expected him to why else would you invite Frank Zappa, Dee Snider, and John Denver in the same hearing? It goes, for those of you in America, it's Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the other. You expected John Denver to take a totally different tack than you would expect Dee Snider and Frank Zappa to take. They wanted Frank Zappa and Dee Snider to just crumble and be degenerates, and they wanted John Denver to come in and say, yes, those degenerates need to be stopped. We need to protect the children. We need to protect our way of life. We need to protect the great outdoors in the West from the influence of these evil heathens. Well, they may have been in for a surprise. And in fact, it was Dee Snider that was talking about this. In one interview he gave, he was talking about how he and Frank Zappa met before the hearings, and they were both terrified about what John Denver was going to say. He said, we knew what he should say. He should stick up for the rights of musicians, but they were unsure what he was actually going to say. So the Senate, we know with Senate what the Senate expected John Denver to say. And Dee Snider and Frank Zappa were concerned about what John Denver might say. But let's see what John Denver actually said. And I think he was the one that damaged this entire hearing the most. John Denver was the fucking superstar. We know, Frank Zappa and Dee Snider were superstars of these hearings. John Denver, good old country boy, was the fucking superstar of the whole thing. Let's listen to what John Denver said. And this is the most unedited version I can find. It's slightly edited, but we'll watch it anyway. And while we're bringing this up, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's go with John Denver. Where are you? Where are you not going? Come on, there we go. John Denver, America's sweetheart. And mind you, like I said, John Denver was so Rocky Mountains, outdoors, nature, granola loving, tree hugger dude who had Christmas specials and TV specials and movies and And again, he was actually the second witness after Frank Zappa, so you saw them crossing paths there.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Good morning,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Chairman. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and I apologize for running in and out. I seem to be testifying and briefing many people here in Capitol Hill today, and it causes the ingoing and outgoing. Honorable Chairman, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and a privilege to be this morning and to take advantage of the opportunity given me.
I
in our
apologize
free
for the
society
quietness
to
of the
speak
video.
my mind, to give
Again, volume. I'm sorry. This is as loud as I can make this. This is the best video, the most complete video, and the best volume I have. It was slightly edited. They didn't cut him off. He actually had to leave. Like he'll explain here. As where we got here. There should be sound. What? Are you saying it's like it can't be totally silent, is it? It shouldn't be completely muted. Let me go back here again and tell me if it's actually muted, because I don't think it is. All right, hang on. Let's see if me pausing it rebooted shit here. But anyway, yeah, they didn't cut him off, as someone asked. He just had to go and talk to NASA about being the first musician in space.
press and the media, and through them all.
Let's start over again. Can you hear it now? We can hear it, right?
Thank you very much for being with us.
Good
Please
morning, Mr.
proceed.
Chairman. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and I apologize for running.
Look at the smile on his face. He was looking down his nose at Frank Zappa at the beginning and just treating Dee Snider with absolute contempt. And now he's like, oh, I got John Denver here. I got my boy. He's a wholesome young man.
And out, I seem to be testifying and briefing many people here in Capitol Hill today, and it causes the ingoing and outgoing. Honorable Chairman, members of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor and a privilege to appear before you this morning and to take advantage of the opportunity given me in our free society to speak my mind, to give voice to my opinions in a public forum in front of not only the leadership of our great country, but the press and the media, and through them all who might be listening around our country and around the world. I'm here to address the issue of a possible rating system in the recording industry, labeling records where excesses of explicit sex or graphic violence have occurred, and furthermore references to drugs and alcohol or the occult are included in the lyrics. These hearings have been called to determine whether or not the government should intervene to enforce this practice.
So far, it seems like he's on the Senate track. He's talking about the dangers and the evils of this illicit drugs and alcohol and occult. His luminous grin said, John should have been surrounded by Muppets. Again, that was one of my earliest memories of the Muppet Show was Alice Cooper The Alice Cooper Muppet Halloween special is one of the greatest. John Denver, he did lots of shit with the Muppet. The Muppets know who the cool guys are. And thank you so much. Again, yeah. Best Christmas album ever, John Denver and the Muppets. Best Halloween ever, Alice Cooper and the Muppets. The Muppets rock. Alice Cooper, John Denver, they rock. Tracy Fagan, thank you so much for the super chat. Like the sexting in the Depp trial. Oh, Rottenborn, we need to talk. And join me tomorrow when we're going to be, no, is it tomorrow? Tomorrow or Thursday, one of the days. I can't remember which day, but we're going to be going back to the Rottenborn stuff and catching you up on some of the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp news. And quickly here, the Japanese say Yakuza. Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. I'm a bit behind, but I used to watch war movies when I was 12. Then my parents said I needed to be 15 to watch because of the violence. Even with restrictions, children will listen to it either way. That's why you need to have the parental control. That's why you need to have the parents be there. Before I was a parent, I objected to it. Once I became a parent, I understood the need for it. Renee St. Jean or St. Jean, thank you, the Japanese Yakuza. Renee St. God damn it, there we go. Says, shut up. I don't know who you're talking to, but I hope you're talking to the senators. And not me, not other people, and not the Muppets, and not John Denver. Not quite sure who you're telling to shut up, but yeah. That's it. I went to dinner with some friends last night, and there was another couple there. Their 16-year-old girl was drinking wine, and the old me would have said, "Oh, how can they condone their 16-year-old child drinking wine?" When the adult me with a child says, "Okay, if your 16-year-old child is drinking wine with you, you can teach them the proper way. You can teach them etiquette. You can teach them responsibility. The parents are the line of defense." Let's get back to John Denver.
Mr. Chairman, this would approach censorship.
Boom!
Practice.
Right out of the gate, John Denver puts him in their place and says, "This bullshit you're trying to do is censorship."
Whether or not the government should intervene to enforce this practice. Mr. Chairman, this would approach censorship. May I be very clear that I'm strongly opposed to censorship of any kind in our society or anywhere else in the world.
They were not expecting that. There is no way you can convince me they were expecting John Denver to say there is no reason ever for censorship in any part of society.
I've had in my experience 2 encounters with a sort of censorship. My song Rocky Mountain High was banned from many radio stations as a drug-related song. This was obviously done by people who'd never seen or been to the Rocky Mountains, and all
Preach, Johnny Denver. And as a child, as a youth, we used to sing. If you haven't heard the song, it's like, the sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy. We used to sing, marijuana on my shoulders makes me high. But yeah, Rocky Mountain High, Colorado. People were thinking that was about marijuana. It was about, because it had the word high in it. And this is a beautiful description of what it's like to live where I come from, where you just have the open sky, the Rocky Mountains. You have this beautiful scenery. This is, and you can just tell he's disgusted that someone would think that euphoria, the endorphins, the happiness, the thrill of living in the great outdoors would be misconstrued by people who are fucking idiots. You can just feel that he really, really hates that.
My song Rocky Mountain High was banned from many radio stations as a drug-related song. This was obviously done by people who'd never seen or been to the Rocky Mountains, and also had never experienced the elation, the celebration of life, or the joy in living that one feels when he observes something as wondrous as the Perseid meteor shower.
Which just ended last week.
On a moonless and cloudless night, when there are so many stars that you have a shadow from the starlight. And you're out camping with your friends, your best friends, and introducing them to one of nature's most spectacular light shows for the very first time. Obviously, a clear case of misinterpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, what assurance have I that any national panel to review my music would make any better judgment? To my knowledge, my movie, Oh God, was not banned in any theaters. However, some newspapers refused to print our advertisements, and some theaters refused to put the name of the film in the marquee. I don't believe that we were using the name of our Lord in vain. Quite the opposite, we were making a small effort to spread his message that we are here for each other and not against each other. Discipline and self-restraint when
Look at that. That is,
even in a city environment.
oh, God damn it.
You and I are different.
Frustration in their lives, an inability to communicate with their parents,
Fuck.
an inability to understand has to do with our willingness as parents to take responsibility for the upbringing of our children,
God
pay
dang it.
attention to their interest, to respond. In a mature and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all perspectives of an issue becomes more and more important. Those things which in our experience are undesirable.
I
educated
suck.
people. In a mature and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all
Where
using
were we?
the name of our Lord in
Oh,
vain.
there we go. We'll start from here.
Quite the opposite. We were making a small effort to spread his message that we are
Shit.
here for
Sorry about
each
that.
other and not against each other.
Right there.
Discipline and
That is a look of utter and sheer confusion on the face. This is the look of holy shit. What the fuck just happened? This is not what we expected. This is a look of sheer bewilderment on the faces of these senators. We weren't expecting him to come out against censorship. We weren't expecting him to come out against limiting the rights of these people to talk about drugs and sex and alcohol. Absolute bewilderment and frustration on these faces.
self-restraint when practiced by an individual, a family, or a company is an effective way to deal with this issue. The same thing when forced on a people by their government, or worse, by a self-appointed watchdog of public morals, is suppression and will not be tolerated in a democratic society. Mr. Chairman, the suppression of a people, or of a society, begins, in my mind, with the censorship of the written or spoken word.
Short Order Cook says, damn, John is making sense. Now, Dee Snider and Frank Zappa both, after these hearings, said that John Denver was the superstar of the hearings because they were they were being discounted just because of who they were, Dee Snider and Frank Zappa. But people listened to John Denver, and he said exactly the opposite of what they expected. And Arian the vegetarian said, John Denver reminds me of elementary school days when I'd go with my dad on the weekends, and we'd always be driving to anywhere through the Uintas. The Uintas is a stretch of mountains in the United States, one of only two mountain ranges, the Uintas and the Appalachians, that run east-west instead of north-south. Just a little bit of trivia there. Through the Uintas in his old Chevy, no seat belts, the Coors in his koozie. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Uintas a little bit on Friday, so stay tuned for that. Swan Lake lady, who is also from that neck of the woods, from just over the hill in my hometown. You're speaking the truth there, Jeff. Yeah, you have to experience the midnight in the Rockies on a cloudless, moonless night.
It was so in Nazi Germany. It is so in many places today where those in power are afraid of the consequences of an informed and educated people. In a mature and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all perspectives of an issue becomes more and more important. Those things which in our experience are undesirable generally prove to be unfurthering and sooner or later become boring. That process cannot and should not be stifled. On the other hand, that which is denied becomes that which is most interesting. That which is hidden, that which is denied becomes that which is most desired, and that which is hidden becomes that which is most interesting. Consequently, a great deal of time and energy is spent trying to get at what is being kept from you. Our children, our people, our society, and the world cannot afford this waste. It was my pleasure to meet with radio programmers and broadcasters from all over the country this past week in Dallas. They expressed their concern about this issue and the direction in which it seemed to be going. They also expressed their willingness to practice the discipline and self-restraint that I mentioned earlier, especially when they were given direction by their listeners. Now, I believe this to be true because they're in business to please their listening audience. I would like to acknowledge the PMRC for bringing this issue to the attention of not only our industry, but our government and our people. It is obvious that we are dealing with a real problem which warrants our concern. I would like to point out, however, that we address ourselves not to the problem, but to the symptoms. I suggest that explicit lyrics and graphic videos are not so far removed from what is seen on television every day and night, whether it be in the soap operas or on the news. That we should point our finger at the recording industry while watching the general public at a nationally televised baseball game chant in unison, "The Blue Jays suck," is ludicrous. The problem, Mr. Chairman, in my opinion, has to do with our willingness as parents to take responsibility for the upbringing of our children, to pay attention to their interest, to respond to their needs, and to recognize that we as parents and as individuals have a greater influence on our children and on each other than anything else could possibly have.
And that is something that's been echoed by every single one of these witnesses. It's the parents' responsibility. It's the parents' obligation. It's the parents who have the most impact on their children for good, bad, or indifference.
To quote a wise old man from ancient China, if there be righteousness, not self-righteousness, that's not part of the quote. If there be righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. If there be beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. If there be harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation. And if there be order in the nation, there will be peace in the world. I thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, if I may, add a couple of personal words. I'm a father of 2 children, both adopted. I have a lot of friends in the music business, other rock performers who have children also. And all of them, including myself, we have a great concern for our children. That's why I'm here today. In my experience, sir, all over the world, one of the most interesting things about the music that young people are listening to is it gives us, as adults, a very clear insight as to what is going on in their minds. We can know what they're thinking by listening to the music that they surround themselves with. The people that I've had the opportunity to talk with, the troubled children, the teenagers who are considering suicide, what they express to me is a real frustration in their lives, an inability to communicate with their parents, an inability to understand or to envision any kind of a possible future because of the nuclear threat that we live under. They don't see things getting better economically. They don't see things getting better for the small businessman, for the small farmer. They do not see a future for themselves. It is my opinion that it is out of this that some young people put a gun into their mouths and pull the trigger. We can turn this around, sir. We can address the reality of a problem and not deal with just the symptoms and create not only a better world for our children, but for ourselves and all of humanity. We can end hunger. We can rid the world of nuclear weapons. We can learn to live together as human beings on a planet that travels through the universe, living the example of peace and harmony among all.
I haven't listened to too much of it, but it seems like the majority is otherwise. I think that the oral atmosphere developing in this particular hearing that the committee's on trial and make darn sure we don't do nothing.
That's a good point. See, now it's starting to sit in with these fuckwits. It's starting to set in. They're starting to realize that it's not the music industry that's on trial. It's themselves that are on trial, and they have to be able to justify taking away any First Amendment rights. So now it's the senators who are getting defensive. Oh, you're saying we're on trial. You're putting us on trial. The music industry, the people, they're putting us on trial. They should be on trial. It is the senators that should be forced to justify their desires to do any of this shit rather than the people to try to argue why it shouldn't be done.
Or to transmit rather back to the original problem. Filth, pornography, suicide, all this other stuff coming out of these records. Now, the other gentleman, Zappa, said, print the words. I rather like that. Since I wouldn't have to read it. He would read it one way, obviously, and I would read it differently. And there is that human error involved. Do you have any recommendation for the committee other than just do nothing? I mean, you've talked in beautiful terms. You're the best I've seen on peace and the family. I'm not speaking facetiously, and the family and the responsibility and the wonderful human nature. And I'm with you on the stars. We're both supporters of Cousteau, and I've authored in this particular committee the oceanography programs. Barring all of that, are you saying do nothing?
No, sir, I'm not saying do nothing, and that is exactly why I'm here and why I applaud this hearing and applaud what these ladies, what the PMRC has presented to us.
Well, I think we've got to be sensible about it, but there is, like you say, particularly with at least the radio and TV, I can't read the words coming there. I can see that difference between Mr. Zappa and myself. If persons of free volition can go in and read the language and see the words there, I wouldn't have to read it. But then, to not have some inhibition, some kind of discipline, as you describe it, within the broadcast media, then we've flunked the course, because there are 6 hours of that thing steaming and beaming into the homes.
Well, you know, Senator, excuse me if I'm interrupting.
No, sir, not. I'm trying to.
When I was raised, television was just coming out, and golly, it was an attractive medium, and I could sit there in front of that TV set and watch it all day. My parents had some restrictions on how much time I could watch television during.
Again, parental responsibility. And I'm sorry that this volume is so low and muted, but this is the best we can do. That's exactly it. The parents set restrictions on how much TV they can watch, how much music they can listen to, how many hours of games they can play a day. Parental responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility to take the role of the parent.
In the week, especially when I was going to school, and I could choose the programs that I wanted to watch. And I think that this is kind of an influence that we can exercise as parents on our children. Just because it's on 7 hours doesn't mean our kids are going to get to sit there and watch it that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And we can give them a certain amount of time. And over here for me, you know, one of the things that I'm fortunate with is my children and I live in a beautiful country, and we have a lot of activities which really call us outdoors, call us together and away from the boob tube. No, I don't watch very much television. And I think that we can exercise this kind of influence on our children, even in a city environment.
You and I are different. I mean, you and I are the same. I don't watch that much television, obviously, but the record is otherwise. They watch television as much as instruction in the classroom in the public schools and more. All surveys show that. So it's being watched. So that's the fact. And living in the real world, where you and I would like to restrict our children, or me, my grandchildren now, it's a real problem. It's a real problem, and I guess you know.
It's not a real problem. There were many times when my parents literally ripped the plug out of the wall and said, "You're done watching TV." Whether it was for a punishment, or whether just because I spent too much time doing it, or whether I wasn't spending enough time with the family, there was numerous times when my parents would just pull the plug out of the wall, or take the TV and move it into another room and say, "You ain't getting this back until you've demonstrated some particular thing."
From being a master at the art, the way you start off selling that record is get it accepted at some good programming, some good broadcasting, and then the sales follow. And you can't print those words ahead of time, so I'll know to cut the television off quick or whatever it is, unless that discipline develops, in other words, with the broadcast media. We are going to be forced somewhere with regulation through the FCC or otherwise. I don't think the American public is going to go along just with a nice hearing up in Washington today. I think there's going to have to be something more developed of some kind of discipline, as you indicate, and I'm trying to find out from you, how do you develop that discipline a little bit better than what has been developed?
Well, I think that you know, a good beginning to addressing this real problem is this hearing that is taking place. What most concerns me, aside from potential legislation which might be enacted, which we have said which we've heard today is not going to be the case, is that the whole presentation made by the PMRC comes from, in my experience, a foundation of fear. The only thing we have to fear, as President Roosevelt said, is fear itself. I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of what my children might see. I'm not afraid of anything that might be shown them or done in their presence. that would lessen my influence on them or their opportunity to grow up and be fine, upstanding adults and perhaps someday serve in this very august body.
Well, most respectfully, President Roosevelt never heard these records.
Senator Gore.
And this is a beautiful response to that. You know, you have nothing to fear but fear itself. Oh, he didn't hear these lyrics. And mind you, this was a president who was involved in world wars.
I think the things that he heard were far worse, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's an honor to be able to ask some questions. I've been a fan for a long time, Mr. Denver, and not only of your music, but also of your contributions to efforts like Farm Aid at the present time, and also world peace and your trips to the Soviet Union and elsewhere. Do you see the kind of trend in some rock music that is outlined by this presentation? Have you ever been to a Motley Crue concert, for example?
No, sir.
Do you agree that there does seem to be a growing trend in the, at least in the heavy metal area, that emphasizes explicit violence and sex and sadomasochism and the rest? You're aware of that music, aren't you?
Yes.
Why do you think that has been growing in popularity?
Again, sir, my experience, not only in this country, but all over the world, is that music today is the medium which most specifically tells us what's going on in young people's minds. Not what's being put into them, but what reflects what they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this addresses itself to a much graver problem, in fact, the source of the symptom that we're discussing here today.
Well, I mean, if a 10-year-old listens to a song glorifying rape, that's not reflecting what is in that 10-year-old's mind, is it?
I don't think so. I'm not sure that there are many 10-year-olds who know what rape is.
Beautiful, beautiful statement from John Denver. It's always the, Tipper and Al worried about sex, little 10-year-old children learning about sex and hearing about rape. And even John Denver's like, I don't think a 10-year-old knows about rape, that about rape.
Well, I'm not sure I would agree with that.
Stumped.
If you have an explicit description of a suicide, for example, and a song that seems to glorify and promote suicide, that's not. I mean, young people are aware of that.
Mr. Gore, Senator, excuse me for interrupting.
Sure.
And even he thinks Senator Gore is laughable at this point. Al is talking about this dumb shit stuff, and John Denver starts laughing at him. That's how you know you're a fuckwit, if John Denver starts laughing at you for your descriptions of prurient details of sex and rape and suicide.
That's not. I mean, young people are aware of that.
Mr. Gore, Senator, excuse me for interrupting.
Sure.
If I could count the number of times that a mother or father has come up to me, or a child has come up to me and says, if I don't get your autograph, my mother's going to kill me. If I don't get your autograph, my daughter is going to kill me.
Yeah.
Well,
you see a difference.
This is a part of our language, and
that is so beautiful. That's him saying, yeah, when you sing about killing, dying, you're not really meaning that. That's just language. If I don't get your autograph, my husband will kill me. We don't really mean it. We're just expressing our feelings in those words.
you see a difference.
This is a part of our language, and there might be a slight difference, but I don't think it's as big as you point out. This video that we watched here today, I think is probably a fantasy that every kid has about his father.
Twisted Sister. We're
It
not
may
gonna
be
take it.
exactly those particular graphics. It may be out in the farm, being able to take your dad out and put a board to his fanny. But this goes on. This is a part of growing up, and our society has gotten increasingly complex. There are many more images to reach from. They all have an impact on a child's mind. And I'm saying that the small percentage of records that we're discussing here today, compared to the 125,000 songs that are released every year, is minuscule and is not going to affect our children to a degree that we need to be fearful of. We need to be conscious of it. We must concern ourselves, and we need to communicate with our children and have them feel comfortable with communicating with us.
Well, let me come back to the question about suicide. Let's say you have a popular rock star who has a lot of fans, who sings a song that says suicide is the solution, and appears in fan magazines with a gun barrel pointed in his mouth, and promotes material that seems to glorify suicide. Here we have one of the highest rates of teen suicide of any country in the world. The rate has gone up 300% in the last decade among young people, while it's remained constant among adults. Do you think it's a responsible act for a record company to put out a song glorifying suicide, and for the artist to promote the album by putting a gun in his mouth in a simulation of suicide?
I would not like to be the one to tell a record company or an artist what to do.
Powerful.
I certainly think the picture that you describe is deplorable. And if I found that in my home, I would talk to my kids about it and get rid of it.
My understanding that you have to leave, is that correct? Are you going to?
I was
Senator,
just going to
appreciate
say
that.
this.
Yes, I have an appointment with NASA at noon, and if it's possible, I would like to go to that. But I also really appreciate being able to discuss this with you all, and I'm happy to stay if I can handle that.
Let me ask if are there any more questions?
Mr. Chairman, I will stop my questions at this point and wish Mr. Denver good luck in getting on the space shuttle.
Thanks very much. I appreciate that.
Senator Exon has a question, and I think Senator Pressler does.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for being here.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate your testimony. I don't know you, but although it may lead to the beginning of the end of your career, I like your music. In fact, I think I know you. I think a friend of yours, Rainbow Terrain, has talked about you. She's an art instructor and a friend of my wife's, and I kind of think I know her through you. Just one basic question. Please clarify for us, what is your opinion to the key question that's been asked time and time again here, and you've alluded to it. Are you for the printing of material on labels? Are you for or against, or are you for or against any kind of a rating, as long as it's done voluntarily between the record companies and the producers? That's my key question, and I would simply say one more time, which I said every time I've had this microphone this morning. I think it's wrong to imply that although no bills have introduced, bills might not be introduced. And I want to hold that threat for what it's worth over the head of trying to accomplish some free enterprise volunteerism that most people have agreed to. What do you think about a free enterprise volunteerism getting together and either printing or coming up with a rating?
This is a brilliant answer.
Program of some kind that would be prominently displayed on records.
I'm opposed as an artist. I'm opposed to any kind of a rating system, voluntary or otherwise. Putting the lyrics on the sleeve of an album or on the jacket of an album is no problem for me. Again, I think it goes beyond reading the word, and I bring up again the song Rocky Mountain High. You know, some people, high is high, and high is getting stoned, and high is a feeling of elation, a celebration in life. As I told the people in the Soviet Union when I had the privilege of singing for them there, I sang Rocky Mountain High, and then I described what high meant to me, and then I said to them, that's how I feel having the privilege of singing for you. That is how I feel having the opportunity to participate in my government here today.
Thank you, Mr. Denver. Thank you, Mr. Young.
Senator Pressler.
Like I said, ties in with my question. Your basic line is that you're against any type of government action in this area, or indeed any voluntary labeling?
I would be, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience for waiting so long.
Thank you, Senator. Great privilege to be with you all.
Thank you.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I didn't hear them say it. I didn't hear it in this clip. I think they may have edited it out. Hang on. I want to get an exact quote. What? Hang on just a second. God, I'm pulling this up because I didn't hear this. I think this was one of the parts they edited out. All right, I've got it here. I didn't hear. Tell me if I'm wrong. Did they edit it out and or was it in there and I just missed it? Where he talked about Nazi Germany. I didn't hear him talk about Nazi Germany in that quote. Did I miss it? Was I wrong? Did I just spaz it out and didn't hear it? I think they cut out the part about Nazi Germany. Right? Am I correct? They cut that out? Yeah, it's okay. Saying it was edited out. That's what I was waiting for. That's the crushing point that I was waiting for them to talk about. Oh, you did? Okay, we have one that said edited, one that said he talked about it. You missed it. It was right at a point you paused. Yeah, that was that was one of the most powerful points, and I missed it because I was pausing and being an idiot. When he said, Mr. Chairman, the suppression of the people of a society begins, in my mind, with the censorship of the written or spoken word. It was so in Nazi Germany. It is so in many places today where those in power are afraid of the consequences of an informed and educated people. The United States government is terrified of an informed and educated people. He went on to say, in a matured and incredibly diverse society such as ours, the access to all perspectives of an issue becomes more and more important. That's some powerful, powerful words. And he came out as the hero of the day. He came out as the hero of the day because they expected him to fall in line with what they wanted. And he was the strongest against it. He was against any type of restrictions or censorship or labeling. Whereas the other ones at least said, okay, you know, the words, printing the words, that was as absolutely as far as John Denver was willing to go. And he compared anything more than that to Nazi Germany. So that brings us to the end of our day here. Let's quickly move through a few of these things here. Trevor Goik says, those are my mountains, the Uintas. I'm from the Wyoming side. The Uintas are beautiful mountains. We used to go there every year as a Boy Scout. But just over the Uintas into the Wyoming side, you have the Wind Rivers. The Wind Rivers in Wyoming have some of the most amazingly beautiful scenery. That'll give you a Rocky Mountain high in the Wind Rivers. Oh, we've got a super chat here. Britt Cormier, thank you so much for the super chat. Deeply appreciated. Look how far the Senate hearings have fallen. This was bad, but it's still better than what we have today. Absolutely agree with that. And we're going to just catch up on a few things here, chat for a few minutes. If you want to bail, please feel free. I appreciate you sticking with me. On your way out, please hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Deeply appreciated. We're going to wrap this up real quick because we've been going 3 hours and 20 minutes. It's an hour longer than I had planned. It's too interesting to me, and I just talk too much. I appreciate you bearing with me as we go through this. All right, we've got Arlene in between. Arlene, my mother's name. What sucks means has been lost over the years. I hate that term. Yeah, it just basically meant, suck a dick, literally. My dad, my 87-year-old dad, the word suck just sends him over the edge. That is absolutely like his pet peeve word. But yeah, you know, it means things. Words used to mean things. CME Fashionable says, look at the MASH theme song, Suicide is Painless. I was literally going to comment about that when you posted that. We had some kind of telepathy going on there. We had some kind of ESP running through things. And I actually had the lyrics pulled up because, I mean, many people don't know that watch MASH. For those of you that aren't from America and haven't seen MASH, it's an American show about the Korean War. The introductory theme is legendary, but it has lyrics. Many people don't know there's lyrics to that. And the song is called Suicide is Painless. And it's these are the lyrics where it's directly talking about suicide. Through early morning fog I see, and run through the song. Through early morning fog I see visions of the things to be, that pains that are withheld from me. I realize and I can see that suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and I can take it or leave it if I please. The game of life is hard to play. I'm gonna lose it anyway. The losing card I'll someday lay. So this is all I have to say. Suicide is painless. It brings on many changes, and I can take it or leave it if I please. You know, the sword of time will pierce our skins. It doesn't hurt when it be. This is, you know, it's an iconic song, and it's totally about suicide. And we don't pay attention to that because, yeah. And MASH, of course, was about the Korean War. It happened in the MASH 4077 is up north in Uijeongbu. Here, they actually have the wall of what was Rosie's Cafe. It's still there. So yeah, that's kind of a cool thing if you can get up to the military base in Uijeongbu and kind of know that's where the MASH 4077 was. So yeah, I was thinking that exact same thing at the exact same moment you mentioned it. That's kind of weird. Magician Sapphire, thank you so much for the super chat. Deeply, deeply appreciated as we wind this thing down. It's nice that Al Gore took time from his busy schedule of chasing Man Bear Pig to look like a fool in this case. We had several Man Bear Pig comments throughout the night. Poor Al Gore. That's a just if you're not a South Park or Al Gore fan, do yourself a favor and just go to Google and or go to YouTube and search Man Bear Pig. It'll bring up one of the funniest South Park clips you've ever seen in your life. Thanks for that super chat. Jillian N, thank you again for your super chat. Jeff, given the fats, I'm fat. Given the hats, facial hair, maritime and admiralty law, pipes and booze, your brand provides plenty of material for excellent custom emojis. Yeah, I just need someone that can create custom emojis. I have like a bunch in my head that I want drawn up that I can at least offer something for a membership. I have nothing to offer for a membership, you know, for a monthly fee at this point. At least if I had emojis, I wouldn't feel dirty about doing it. So if anybody watching has any ability to create custom emojis, please hit me up on my email at thelegalvices@gmail.com and we will talk. Legal Vice. So, oh, hey, yeah, someone's Kitty Cat says, I see your puppy. Yep. That's Strawberry. Thargy has climbed up onto the chair. What you doing, pup? Hey. Should be sleeping. All right. MASH and other TV shows, says Drew Bradley, is the government's mission to notion the citizens to join the military. Only the government is allowed to be subliminal, but how dare the private artist? And I think that was a valid argument that people were, you know, these three witnesses, I guess we'll call them three. they were all saying, movie actors, they're actors. People don't hold them accountable for what they pretend to do on stream. But the artists, they present their legitimate selves on their albums. And if you're censoring them, if you're judging them by that stifles the free speech, that calls into question their character. Arian the Vegetarian says aliens are real. We'll be talking about that in your neighborhood. We'll be talking about on Friday with Fair and Balance. We'll be talking about Skinwalker Ranch. We'll be talking about an experience that my brother had in the Uinta Mountains that we were just talking about. So yeah, join me for that. We're gonna have an interesting rest of the week. Like I said, I have to go to my friend's funeral. They do the Korean funeral rites tomorrow. My stream is scheduled for the same time tomorrow as it was today. And we're going to be doing we're going to be catching up on the Alec Baldwin case. We've got a lot of stuff to report there. And then Thursday, we'll be doing Amber Heard and Johnny Depp stuff. On Friday, we'll be doing Fair and Balanced. Fair and Balanced will be on the channel to do our Unexplained series with, like I said, aliens, Bigfoot, ghosts, hauntings, government conspiracies, things like that. Whatever. Our conversations always go way off the reservation there. So we'll have fun with that. Lady Autumn Sky asks, have you seen the series Skinwalker Ranch? I watched the first couple episodes. A lot of it is staged. A lot of it's and it's not as good as I was hoping it would be. But it's still kind of interesting. I'll probably get back to watching it someday. Well, Arian the Vegetarian says, what was that study in Upper Western Utah on UFOs? I didn't know there was a special study done, but Upper Western Utah is like Upper Western Utah would be sort of a triangle position from Area 51 and the Dugway Proving Grounds, where they hold all of the shitty, horrific chemicals and things that even the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia doesn't want to deal with. They put it out in the middle of the Utah desert. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the FBI report a little bit tomorrow, but I searched for a while today and I couldn't find an actual copy of the FBI report. I wanted to review the actual FBI report, not what people say the FBI report said. I couldn't find a copy of it online. So if any of you have access to or know where I can find an actual copy of the actual FBI report in the Baldwin shooting, please, God, send it to me by email, thelegalvices@gmail.com. I couldn't find a copy of it. I tried. I couldn't find an actual copy to read and quote from. So unless I can come up with an actual copy of it, we'll have to rely on what news outlets say that the FBI report said. Staged and overproduced. Yeah, that's a very good summary of Skinwalker Ranch. It could have been so much more, but you need sensationalism. You need it there. But I'll tell a couple of stories about the Uinta Mountains, which are just north of the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah, be sure to ask Farron about the medieval night conspiracy. That was messed up today. Yeah, so please, if you have a copy of the FBI report and you can get it to me in the next 12 hours or so, please do, or please tell me where I can get it, because I couldn't find it. All right, with that, I think we're all caught up on everything. We've been going 3 hours and 27 minutes, which is about an hour longer than I thought we would go. I apologize for being so long-winded. But we need it. It is 1:30 a.m. I need to get my dumb ass to sleep. You guys are completely awesome. You guys are completely great for sticking with me through here. Oh, and I've got a tweet that I apparently haven't been paying attention to. Here's this. This is okay. All right. Well, listen to that. All right. My mods that are still here. If any of you are still here. Sunshine, are you still here? That's good. Have all of my other mods disappeared already? Have they abandoned me? I've been abandoned by my mods. Thank you so much for being here. Mods, you keep us in line. You keep the conversation great. And as I always say, every time I'm here, my chat is the best chat on the entire internet. You guys are great. I love y'all. I enjoy every minute we have here together. We'll be back tomorrow for more. In the meantime, you guys take care of yourselves. Mods, bless you all for everything you do. Take care of yourselves. For those of you that super chatted, my heart is grateful to you for doing that. As I say, I never expect, I never demand, I never require super chats, but it's just a special thing, and it gets you a little extra notification, for which I'm deeply, deeply indebted to you for. Hit that like button on the way out. Oh, we got Greg Hansen coming in just under the wire. Best stream you've done yet. Wow, that's saying a lot. Thank you so much. We'll try to keep up the good work. Thank you. Thank you for that super chat. It is so appreciated. Deccan says, I'm late. Legal Vice is going to start at the beginning. You came in here right at the end. So if you're starting from the beginning and not hearing this, about 3.5 hours from now, you're going to hear me say thank you so much for your comments. If you're listening to me now, great. Go back and hit it from the beginning. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for everything. I couldn't do this without you. I'd have no reason to be here without you. Again, just to very quickly on the way out, tomorrow, Alec Baldwin. Thursday, is Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. Friday is Fair and Balanced, unexplained, paranormal, government conspiracy stuff. Weekends are off. Monday, there will be no Maritime Monday this week because we will have the one and only Drexel, the real Drexel will be here. And you're in for a serious red pill based as fuck, completely unbreaded stream that night. If you're not ready for Drex, don't come on Monday. Check out. Come back on Tuesday. Pretend Monday never happened. I'll forgive you. Just don't unsubscribe because you don't like what I talk about for one day. I'm warning you now. And with that, I'm going to go to bed. It's 1:34 a.m. in Korea. You all have a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, a great night. Be yourselves. Be the best you can possibly be. And no matter what happens, never forget to enjoy your legal vices. I'm out.